Scarlett Montgomery keyed in the code, and the door to her penthouse clicked open. She stepped inside, only to freeze when she saw an unfamiliar figure in the living room. It was a middle-aged man with glasses and a slight paunch, scrolling through TikToks on his phone. William Montgomery, her supposed stepfather. The air in the room instantly felt heavy, suffocating. The disappointment that had been weighing on her all day plunged straight to the bottom of her stomach. Her mom had probably asked him to come over and help clean, another transparent attempt to force a bond between them. In the beginning, Scarlett had almost been touched by the gesture until she learned the truth. Her mother had no idea that his version of helping was to hire a cleaning service while he lounged on the sofa, glued to his phone. It was the same every time, and then her mother would wonder why Scarlett couldn't just get along with him. She was long past caring. Scarlett slipped off her shoes in silence and walked to her bedroom, shutting the door with a definitive click. He didn't even look up. Inside, she immediately started pulling things out of drawers and closets, a frantic search for something she couldn't name. Soon, the floor was littered with a strange collection of artifacts from her past, a faded and childish watercolor painting, a spinning top, a snow globe, old paintbrushes, a Barbie doll. Then came love letters, charcoal sketches, paper roses, a delicate necklace. She even pulled the giant teddy bear off her bed and placed it among the treasures. Gazing at the collection spread before her, a ghost of a smile touched her lips. Every single item was from Lucas, a birthday gift for every year, tracing their journey from childhood to now, from innocence to maturity, from a clumsy friendship to the first blush of love. Both the watercolor and the charcoal sketch were portraits of her, though the skill level was worlds apart. The watercolor was less a painting and more a glorified stick figure. A round head, crescent moon eyes and smile, a blue trapezoid for a dress, and a yellow circle for the sun. As she smiled, the tears she thought she'd exhausted at school began to fall again. A single drop landed on the watercolor, and she quickly snatched the yellowed paper away. Then she froze. Something's missing. One thing is missing, she whispered, her voice hollow. Forgetting her slippers, she threw open her door and stormed into the living room, barefoot. "Where are my things?" she demanded. William finally looked up from his phone, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face before he masked it. "What things?" Scarlett took a deep breath, fighting to keep her voice steady. "My things. The music box that was on my nightstand." She didn't want a screaming match with this man, not when it would inevitably upset her mother. But she didn't want him invading her space, either, which was precisely why she'd moved out years ago. He squinted, jogging his memory. "Oh, that. I had the cleaning lady toss it this afternoon. It was so childish. You're too old for things like that." Scarlett felt the ground give way beneath her. "Who told you to throw it away? That was mine. Did you even ask me? Lucas gave that to me when I was 12. William flicked the ash from a cigarette he'd lit. "You're about to start your internship," he said with a sigh. "You need to focus on what's important. Grow up." The dam of her composure broke. "You're not my father. Why do you care so much?" "Why can't I care?" he shot back, rising to his feet. He saw the tears welling in her eyes, the cold glare she fixed on him, and decided to de-escalate. He grabbed his phone and headed for the door. "I'll buy you a new one. Those things are a dime a dozen." He slammed the door behind him. Outside, thunder rumbled, and flashes of lightning illuminated the darkening room. The rain began to pour, hammering against the windows. Scarlett stood frozen, a statue in the living room, the sound of the slammed door not even registering. Her mind drifted back. William and her mother had just returned from trip abroad. They'd brought a gift for Linda, her half-sister, but nothing for her. She had cried, telling Lucas all about it. The very next day, he showed up at the music box. The memory of his smile was still so vivid. He'd come over early, but her mother and Linda had cornered him, chattering away for what felt like an eternity before he finally managed to escape to her room. Scarlett had been curled up in bed, still sulking with red, puffy eyes. The feeling that washed over her when she saw him was indescribable. He'd pulled her out from under the covers and, like a magician, produced the music box from inside his jacket. He placed a finger to his lips. "Shoo," he'd whispered. "Linda doesn't have one. This is just for you. Don't you dare tell her. Look, it even plays a song." When Scarlett snapped back to the present, she was standing downstairs in the pouring rain, a lone figure soaked to the bone. Heavy drops plastered her thin clothes to her skin, making them feel impossibly heavy. Strands of hair stuck to her cheeks, and she swiped them away with a careless hand. She stared at the row of large, industrial trash bins, her expression chillingly blank. "This," she muttered to the storm, "is why I hate thunderstorms." An eternity later, the cold rain on her skin had been replaced by the steaming heat of the shower. Steam filled the bathroom as Scarlett let the hot water cascade over her, a faint smile on her lips as she cradled the music box in her hands. On the back, a wobbly L index was painted in what was clearly white out from a time before correction tape was common. The loopy L was Lucas's work, the neater S was hers. She didn't know if the liquid trailing down her cheeks was hot water or tears, and she didn't care. She just let out a soft, broken laugh. "Your L is so ugly," she whispered. "It's always been ugly." She mimicked Lucas's childhood gesture, pressing her index finger to her lips, but she couldn't stop her mouth from trembling, her vision blurring completely. "Why did I forget? How could I have forgotten? I took your kindness for granted, treated it like it was something I was entitled to. Thank you for being so good to me back then. So good that I'd get mad if you didn't answer my calls." She gazed at the wooden music box, and for a moment, the image of a bright-eyed little boy appeared before her. She gently traced the painted letters. "You said you were going to marry me when we grew up," she whispered to the empty room. "And I said yes. I was so little, but I said yes. It's my fault I forgot. It's my fault I didn't keep my promise." Her strength gave out. She slid to the tiled floor, hugging her knees to her chest as her quiet whispers turned into heart-wrenching sobs. "It's my fault I hurt you, over and over, without even realizing it. Lucas, I'm so sorry. I really did want to marry you back then. I still do." The next day at noon, Lucas sat in the bustling university dining hall, resting his chin in his hand as he watched the girl across from him. Lily felt his gaze and fidgeted, keeping her head down and taking tiny bites of her food. Her heart was hammering against her ribs. The cafeteria was packed, a chaotic symphony of chatter and clattering trays, but all she could hear was the frantic thumping in her own chest. After a few minutes, she couldn't take it anymore. "Why? Why do you keep staring at me?" she mumbled. Lucas continued to study her, noting how little she'd eaten. He sighed softly. "Not much of an appetite lately?" "It's the heat," Lily replied, her eyes still fixed on her plate. He chuckled. "Are the dark circles under your eyes from the heat, too?" He was about to press her for a real answer, but she finally looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Can I tell you later? Please," she pleaded. Her voice was small and timid, as if she were afraid he'd be angry with her answer. A gentle smile spread across Lucas's face. "If you don't want to tell me, then." He trailed off, realizing what she truly meant. She would tell him if he pushed, but she was hoping he wouldn't. He allowed a soft laugh. "Okay." He reached over and slid a piece of grilled chicken from his plate onto hers. "Good job. You're learning how to say no. That's one step closer to smiling for me." Strangely, her shy refusal made him happy. Lily stared at him, blinking slowly, clearly surprised by his reaction. A few seconds passed, and then she spoke again. "The dark circles are because I've been really tired. I want to work a little harder, so I can achieve my dream sooner." Well, so much for either of them predicting how this would go. Now, it was Lucas's turn to be stunned. He blinked. "I didn't ask. Why'd you tell me all of a sudden?" He was genuinely confused. She looked down, her fingers twisting in her lap. "Because I don't want to say no to you," she said with a quiet determination. Lily had a stubborn streak when it came to the oddest things. Lucas reached across the table and gently brushed her bangs aside, looking into her clear, bright eyes. They were as beautiful as ever, but the deep shadows beneath them made her look utterly exhausted. "Are you going to class this afternoon? Or to your job?" he asked. "My job. You know, you can't build Rome in a day," he said, his expression tinged with concern. "Finish eating. I'll take you somewhere quiet so you can rest for a bit." He saw the flicker of fear in her eyes and quickly added, "What's with that look? Don't get the wrong idea. I'm a perfect gentleman. Do I look like a bad guy to you?" After lunch, Lucas led her to a gazebo he'd recently discovered. The reason he'd only just noticed it had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the drama club's rehearsal space was no longer a suitable meeting spot. The gazebo was tucked away in a more secluded part of campus, next to a large pond. Aside from a few couples who stroll by on weekends, the place was usually deserted. It was peaceful. Lily took in the scenery, her gaze lost in the ripples the gentle breeze created on the water's surface. The cool air was a welcome relief in the afternoon heat. She never knew a place like this existed on campus. Then again, she'd never really explored. She never had the free time. They walked into the gazebo together. In the center stood a stone table flanked by 2 round stone stools. A wooden bench wrapped around the perimeter. Lily carefully wiped down one of the stools for Lucas, but he just hopped up and sat on the edge of the table instead. With a sigh, she sat down on the stool herself. The moment she was seated, he poked her cheek. She puffed it out in protest, and he poked it again, deflating it like a balloon. "I already told you this is a process. You have to pace yourself," he said, his face serious. You've got major dark circles, and you've lost the weight I just saw you put on. You're going to burn yourself out. Lily hung her head and bit her lip, accepting the criticism meekly. From his perch on the table, looking down at her, Lucas felt like a professor addressing a student. He cleared his throat. Ms. Thompson, do you recognize the error of your ways? Lily nodded dutifully, still looking down and fiddling with her fingers like a first grader who'd forgotten her homework. I do, she said, her voice full of contrition. Lucas was satisfied. You have to say, Professor Carter, I was wrong. If you say that, I won't be mad anymore. I was wrong. And the rest. Professor Carter. Her voice was soft, timid, laced with shyness and nerves. Lucas froze for a second, then took a deep breath. Okay, this is not normal. I think I'm enjoying this a little too much. He cleared his throat again. I'm guessing you're too shy to lie down on the bench, so just rest your head here for a while. I'll wake you up when it's time to go to your job. He figured if he hadn't brought her here, she would have just ended up napping at a table in the dining hall. Lily obediently rested her head on her arms on the stone table, slowly stretching her legs out beneath it. The movement caused her jeans to ride up slightly, revealing a sliver of her pale, slender ankle. Like any guy, Lucas noticed immediately. First of all, I'm not a creep. Secondly, I am definitely not a creep. I just happened to see it. He turned his head back, about to say something, but he found that she was already asleep. It had only taken a few seconds. He wasn't sure if it was because she was that exhausted or because she trusted him that much. Or both. She was sleeping soundly, her head turned to the side, cradled in her arms. Up close, he could see the delicate texture of her skin and her fine features. She was breathtaking. A soft breeze drifted through the gazebo, stirring the dark strands of her hair and playfully sweeping a few locks that she'd tucked behind her ear across her cheek. She must have felt the tickle, because her brow furrowed, slightly, in her sleep. Smiling, Lucas reached out and gently tucked the stray hairs back behind her ear. He watched her for a long moment before closing his own eyes, turning his face toward the pond and letting the afternoon breeze wash over him. A contented smile spread across his lips. Although he rested his eyes for a while, Lucas didn't nap. He had to stay awake to wake Lily. It definitely wasn't because a beautiful girl was sleeping so vulnerably beside him. It would be a waste not to look. Lucas nodded to himself, impressed by his own honesty. What a gentleman. As the time neared, the cool breeze died down, and the air grew heavy and warm again. Lucas gently squeezed Lily's cheek. It was soft and warm. Time to get up. I'll walk you, he said softly. Lily stirred, sitting up with a dazed expression. A faint red mark from the stone table was imprinted on her cheek. She blinked slowly for a moment, then rubbed her eyes, finally coming to her senses. When she saw Lucas was still watching her, she quickly looked away, embarrassed. Just sit for a minute and wake up. I was afraid someone might stuff you in a sack and kidnap you, so I didn't go get you water, Lucas said with a light laugh. I'll walk you over in a bit. Only then did he remember he had a class that afternoon. A flicker of panic shot through him, but he immediately dismissed it. A skip was a skip. Who makes it to junior year without ever skipping a class? Nobody, right? Lily quickly shook her head. No, you can't. Why not? Lucas asked. You have class. Lucas blinked. How do you know that? You sent me your schedule for the week, she said, looking at him earnestly. He shrugged and hopped off the table. So much for walking her. He stood beside her and said, Listen to me. After you get paid today, quit that job. I'll help you find students who need a tutor. We'll be a dynamic duo. Wait, that's not right. I'll go have a friendly chat with some parents I know who are anxious about their kids' grades and tell them, your child is at a critical stage. Then you just swoop in and be the tutor. He gave her a mischievous grin. It wasn't really a scam. Emma had seriously told him that when Lily wasn't nervous, she was an amazing teacher. And his mom knew plenty of colleagues desperate to find tutors for their kids. With Lily charging the lowest rates in the industry, it was a win-win. They'd have to raise her prices eventually, of course. She couldn't charge everyone the same family and friends rate she gave Emma. Thinking about it, Lucas poked her cheek again, a little annoyed. Ms. Thompson, I hope you'll repeat this to yourself. 1 hour of tutoring pays more than a whole day at your other jobs. Got it. Lily let out a soft "oh," not sounding very confident. She'd actually applied for a few tutoring jobs over the past couple of days, and every single one had politely rejected her. It was then she realized just how incredibly cooperative Emma had been, and how much work Lucas must have put in behind the scenes to convince his parents. The rigorous interviews other parents put her through, like an interrogation, were the norm. As she was spiraling into self-doubt, Lucas patted her shoulder. Don't worry, I won't set you up with any parents or kids who are jerks. At worst, it'll be just a tiny bit harder than teaching Emma. I promise, just a tiny bit. Or, if you don't like jobs that require so much interaction, you could just tell me. I'll support you either way. Lily nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Thank you. It's not that I don't like it. His words sent a warm current through her. If he hadn't been watching her so intently, she would have had to turn away and take a deep breath. Stop saying things that make it hard to breathe. Thank you is cheap. Shouldn't you repay me? Lucas said, feigning annoyance. He wasn't here for gratitude. How can I repay you? She asked, tilting her head up to look at him. The movement exposed the smooth, pale column of her neck and the gap at the collar of her t-shirt. A light sheen of sweat glistened there from her nap. Lucas dragged his very ungentlemanly gaze away and met her questioning eyes. You can smile for me. Smile. She tilted her head, even more confused. He was doing all this for her, and all he wanted in return was to see her smile? Yeah, like I said, I've never seen you really smile, he said, his expression turning serious. Lily took a deep breath, held his gaze, and then hesitantly curled the corners of her mouth upwards. Lucas sighed. Too stiff. That's actually kind of terrifying. He softened his tone. Maybe the moment passed. Try again, next time you're happy. Lily took out her phone and looked at her reflection. It did look a little strange. Just then, Lucas asked, Are you feeling okay? You look pale all day. I'm fine, she insisted, but her head dropped as she nervously picked at her fingers. Lucas sighed in resignation. After Lily left for her job, Lucas dutifully went back to his class, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Practice. He'd heard most universities had a course like this, some kind of blow-off requirement. He didn't really care. He'd slept through the last few sessions. Most of the student groups were pitching absurdly ambitious projects, like a flower shop that planned proposals or a high-end console gaming lounge. Dreaming was free, after all. The class was just a formality. He and his 3 roommates, Jason, Ryan, and Dylan, claimed their usual spots in the same row. As soon as he sat down, he heard Jason and Ryan whispering, I'm telling you, a government job is the way to go. It's stable, man. You should start studying for the civil service exam with me, Ryan said earnestly. Jason rolled his eyes. It's not that great. You only see the easy parts. He added, just like you only see the good parts of Bianca Cooper. Ryan looked exasperated. Dude, why are you guys always trying to sabotage my love life? That's a low blow. I agree with him, Lucas chimed in. Jason shot him a glare. What do you mean? I haven't seen any good parts to that girl either. Ha 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 ha. Lucas was mid-laugh when he noticed Vanessa sitting in the row directly in front of Jason. She and a few other girls were chatting. Hey V, where's Scarlett? One of them asked. She's not feeling well, took the day off. Oh really? Our academic advisor is a nightmare, Vanessa grumbled. Getting him to approve a sick day is like pulling teeth. We have another class after this, so I can't even go check on her until tonight. Lucas sighed dramatically, turning back to his friends. All right, I'll lay off him. We've all been hopelessly devoted to someone out of our league. Life will teach him his lesson. Jason scoffed. Don't lump me in with you two. I wasn't like that when I was your age. Oh yeah? What were you like? Lucas challenged. Dude, I was a total player. Girls were lining up for me. Lucas nodded thoughtfully, then leaned forward. Vanessa, you hear that? Without turning around, the girl in front of them replied flatly, loud and clear. Jason froze. The other 3 guys erupted in silent, gasping laughter, clutching their stomachs. Just as Lucas caught his breath, his phone buzzed with a new message. Lucas, it's Sophia, Lily's mom. Lily fainted at work. The hospital just called me, but you know my situation. Could you please go check on her for me? I'm trying to figure out a way to get there. Before he even processed the words, Lucas was on his feet. The entire class, professor included, stared at him. Professor, my stomach hurts, he yelled. The professor flinched, pushing his glasses up his nose as he stared at the suddenly frantic student. Jason and the guys were equally dumbfounded, trying to figure out why Lucas, who had been laughing hysterically a second ago, was pulling such a dramatic stunt. But when Jason saw the deadly serious look on Lucas's face, his own smile vanished, replaced by a nod of concern. After a brief, stunned silence, the professor gave a slight nod. The next second, Lucas was gone. He called Sophia on his way out, reassuring her as he sprinted across campus, simultaneously firing off a text to his academic advisor to excuse himself from his next class as well. Unlike his request for Vanessa, the advisor's approval came back almost instantly. At the hospital, outside the patient room, Lucas bent over, gasping for breath. The sharp, sterile smell of antiseptic filled his lungs, and his throat burned from the dead sprint from his car. He leaned against the wall to steady himself and looked up to see a short-haired girl standing by the door, wiping away tears. It was Erin. What's going on? Lucas asked, his voice raspy. Talk to me. I heard she collapsed and came as fast as I could. What happened? Seeing her furiously rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand, his voice grew more urgent. It's hypoglycemia, Erin said, her voice thick with sadness. Lucas went completely still. Are you serious? It's not that big a deal. You're out here bawling your eyes out. You scare me to death. Erin shot him a venomous glare. What did you just say? She looked ready to tear into him, but then she saw the profound relief wash over his face. He sagged against the wall, a faint smile playing on his lips as he finally let himself breathe. Her anger immediately fizzled out. Lucas turned to her, his breathing more even now. Why aren't you inside? The doctor's in there. I just finished her admission paperwork. She has to be admitted? He asked, a fresh wave of worry washing over him. He knew the basics of low blood sugar, but fainting from it was another story. It's standard procedure, even if it's just for a day or two. Lucas nodded grimly and pulled out his phone to call Sophia again, occasionally glancing through the small window on the door. He could see Lily was hooked up to an 4-dextrose drip. Hospitals are just the worst, he muttered while the phone rang. This was the place where even the most devout atheists started praying. Aside from the maternity ward, you rarely saw a smile here. The call connected. Hello, Sophia? Don't worry about coming over. I'm here, Lucas said quickly. Erin and I are both here. It's nothing serious. He felt a pang of guilt for not offering to pick her up, but his first instinct had been to get to Lily as fast as possible. If you need, I can come get you later tonight. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Lucas, Sophia said. Her voice was weary and laced with the faint tremor of unshed tears. She had been waiting by the curb for ages, but no taxi would stop for someone in a wheelchair. She didn't know anyone here, and the sound of cars rushing past had only amplified her feeling of helplessness. It was in that moment that Lucas fully grasped it. Lily was the pillar holding her family up. She couldn't even afford to get sick. Just then, the doctor opened the door. Sophia, I have to go, Lucas said, hanging up. The doctor saw their anxious faces and offered a calm smile. It's not a major issue. As long as hypoglycemia-induced fainting is treated quickly, there are no lasting effects. She just needs to rest. You'll just need to be a bit more careful in the future. Got it, Lucas said, pushing the door open. Lily had heard Lucas's voice outside. Seeing his familiar, handsome face now brought a wave of indescribable comfort. Erin followed him in and gave her a small smile, which prompted Lily to curve her own lips in return. A genuine smile finally appeared on her pale, exhausted face. The feeling of being cherished by her friends had never been so clear. All three of them were smiling, each for their own reason. Lucas gently poked Lily's forehead, then sat on the edge of her bed. I'm sorry, Lily whispered, both for troubling them and for not listening to his advice earlier. Lucas looked up at the 4-bag, watching the dextrose drip slowly. Are you going to listen to me from now on? He asked softly, his tone critical but gentle. I will. You were lucky. If you had fainted and no one found you, the lack of oxygen to your brain could have. Well, you'd be a vegetable, he said, poking her head again. You're already a ditz. Any ditzier, and you'd be a danger to yourself. Lily didn't say anything, just lowered her head and let him poke her, secretly relieved when she glanced up and saw the slight upward tilt of his lips. Could you two maybe stop being so disgustingly cute for 5 seconds? Erin huffed, plopping down on the other side of the bed and taking Lily's hand. Do you want anything to eat? I can go get something. Lily shook her head weakly, looking drowsy and without an appetite. Lucas quietly adjusted the 4-drip to a slower rate. Go get her some crackers or something, just so she has a little something in her stomach. She can eat a real meal when she feels up to it. The moment she heard Lucas's words, Erin was out the door. Who wanted to be the third wheel anyway? After the door clicked shut, the room fell silent. Anything else bothering you? Lucas asked softly, his scolding over. Not really. I just feel weak. No matter how hard you want to push yourself, you have to take care of your body first. You hear me? Lucas said, unwrapping a piece of fruit candy. Erin was out there in tears. For the sake of all of us who care about you, you have to look after yourself. He held the candy up to her lips. Here, a reward for smiling for me for the first time. Lily's lips remained sealed, her eyes wide with nervousness as the orange candy gently nudged them. You need some sugar. Come on, be good. Open up. Ah, Lucas coaxed, as if feeding a small child. She couldn't fight him. With what seemed like a monumental effort, she blushed and opened her mouth just a tiny crack. Lucas frowned. Wider. I can't fit it in there. Can I just eat it myself? She pleaded, her voice a miserable whisper. It's fine. No one can see, Lucas said, pointedly glancing toward the door. If you keep stalling, Aaron's going to walk in and catch us. The instant he turned back, he felt a soft, damp touch against his fingertips. The candy was gone. His hand hovered in the air, a cool, moist sensation lingering on his skin that made him swallow hard. Achievement unlocked. Hand feed the shy girl. He turned his head in surprise, but all he saw was the lovely, flushed profile of her face. She had turned away, not daring to look at him. Lily struggled to control her breathing, her heart pounding in her throat, terrified he would hear. Something isn't right. Did he trick me again? It doesn't matter if no one can see. Lucas stared at Lily's profile, at the long hair cascading down her back, and smiled a goofy, dazed smile. Then he snapped out of it, a frown creasing his forehead. Why does this feel like a turn-based RPG all of a sudden? How does she keep landing these critical hits on me? Well, she's blushing too, so I guess this round still goes to me. My face isn't red. Gotta stay on my toes. Can't let her see me get flustered. Very good, Lucas said with an air of satisfaction. Finish that one, and I'll reward you with another. He was still savoring the soft touch from a moment ago. No, no more. Lily squeaked, mortified. Her voice trembled. You tricked me again, she said plaintively. Lucas was always using this combination of carrot and stick on her, tricking and coaxing her into things. She had been determined not to let him feed her, but his warning about Aaron walking in had short-circuited her brain. He had even set it up by saying no one could see. He was the worst. I'll only trick you, Lucas said, smiling at her. Don't you like it? Lily flopped back onto the pillow and turned her head toward the four-stand, burying half her face in the blankets. She was giving him the silent treatment. For at least a minute. At least until her heart stopped trying to beat its way out of her chest. How would he ask that? If you ask it like that. Even if I do like it, I can't tell you. Lucas chuckled softly and held his phone out to her. Want to FaceTime your mom? So she knows you're okay. This girl was so frugal, she probably didn't even have a data plan. Okay, Lily said, slowly taking the phone and sitting up a little straighter. This time, her silent treatment hadn't even lasted 10 seconds. What's the password? She asked in a small voice. Lucas looked at her, his expression calm. Your birthday. Oh. Lily froze for a long moment before giving a soft ah and looking down to tap the screen. Watching her, a triumphant smile spread across Lucas's face. I win. Consistent damage output is what matters. Occasional critical hits are nothing. The advantage is mine. Lucas had no interest in intruding on her video call with Sophia, so he walked over to the window and gazed out at the brilliant blue sky. Seattle's weather was as fickle and unpredictable as a girl's heart. You could have a gray, overcast morning, a perfectly sunny afternoon, and a torrential downpour at night. It was moody by nature. Staring at the sky, he didn't notice Lily sneaking glances at him from the bed. To her, the sight of his back was far more beautiful than any sky. She did her best to downplay her symptoms for her mother's sake, the weariness vanishing from her expression. She was an expert at this, having done it her whole life. About 10 minutes later, she ended the call and softly called him back over. My mom said to thank you properly. Lily mumbled, completely at a loss for how else she could possibly thank him. She felt like she was drowning in a debt of kindness she could never repay. I heard, but you can ignore her. You're not the type to say thank you anyway, Lucas said with a straight face. Lily was stunned, feeling deeply wronged. Why wouldn't I be? Lucas let out a theatrical, wounded sigh. I just hand-fed you candy, and you didn't even thank me. Do you know how tiring it is to unwrap candy? My hands are clumsy as it is, and I had to resist eating it myself. Thank you, she said, her voice small as she handed back the phone. That's more like it. See? Now she's thanking me. Maybe it was because she hadn't listened to him and had ended up in the hospital, but Lucas felt an overwhelming urge to tease her relentlessly. He took his phone back and glanced at the last message he'd sent his academic advisor. After a moment's hesitation, he dialed his number. A crisp voice answered immediately. Didn't I already approve your leave? What's wrong now? Lucas cleared his throat. Hey, Professor. Look, for all the grunt work I've done for you, could you please approve Vanessa's leave request? What does her leave have to do with you? The advisor asked, curious. Well, she's a little embarrassed to say, and I'm a little embarrassed to say it for her. But it's a pretty serious issue. You should just approve it. She needs to get to a doctor. I put in 2 years of hard work for you, sir. She's my friend, after all. The advisor was completely thrown by his vague, but serious tone. Lucas was rarely this formal. Thinking about how efficient Lucas was and how many headaches he'd saved him, he finally agreed. Though Lucas had sounded earnest and emotional, his face was completely blank throughout the call. He was just doing Vanessa a favor. Anything beyond that was none of his business. After hanging up, Lucas put his phone away and adjusted Lily's 4 drip back to its original speed. You probably haven't had him 4 in a while, right? Starting at that fast can make you nauseous. You should be used to it by now, he said softly, watching the drops fall. I had so many when I was a kid, I became an expert. While I was in 1st or 2nd grade, I even tried to pull the needle out myself. My mom grounded me for a week. Lily tried to picture Emily Carter, who seemed so gentle, punishing Lucas. She couldn't. A part of her wanted to see it. A moment later, the door flew open. I'm back, Erin shouted, then immediately froze. She'd walked in on the two of them staring at each other in silence. Lucas with a look of pure, "What are you looking at?" curiosity on his face. The door was slammed shut with a bang. 2 seconds later, it opened again, slowly. I'm back, Erin said, her voice deadpan as she held up a bag of snacks. She walked over to the bed as if nothing had happened and started unpacking her huge shopping bag. What did you buy? Lucas asked, stunned. It looked like she was preparing for a camping trip. Snacks. I got some bread and crackers for Lily, and some for me to eat tonight, Erin said, looking at her haul with deep satisfaction. I'm staying here to keep her company. After all, we can't have you staying here all night, can we? A boy and a girl all alone. Lucas was pretty sure she was part squirrel. Meanwhile, Vanessa stood outside Scarlett's apartment, knocking gently. Scarlett, it's me. When there was no response, she knocked harder. Open up. Vanessa's knocking grew more frantic. Finally, she gave up and called Scarlett's phone. It went straight to voicemail. After several more calls, the door finally creaked open. Oh my God, woman. I was about to file a missing persons report. Vanessa complained, rushing inside. Didn't, Scarlett mumbled, sounding like she'd just woken up. She turned and shuffled back toward her bedroom, her body swaying unsteadily. The hem of her black lace slips swished with her movements, one strap having fallen from her shoulder, revealing a swath of smooth, pale skin. She didn't bother to fix it. It was just them. Vanessa knew something was wrong. She quickly slipped into the guest slippers Scarlett kept for her and followed. When she reached the bedroom, Scarlett had already collapsed back onto the bed, sprawled out like an octopus, her arms and legs wrapped tightly around a giant teddy bear. Her long hair was fanned out across the pillow in a messy halo. Why aren't you talking? Vanessa asked, hurrying to her side and pressing a hand to her forehead. Oh my God, you're burning up. Do you have a fever? She gently shook Scarlett's shoulder. Did you take any medicine? How did you get a fever this high? Stood in the rain, Scarlett mumbled, her eyes fluttering as she drifted back to sleep. Why on earth were you standing in the rain? Vanessa asked, confused. She had driven Scarlett home, and Scarlett had an umbrella. Where could she possibly have gotten soaked? Scarlett's eyes remained closed. She nuzzled the teddy bear, leaving a small, damp patch on its dry fur. Looking for something, she murmured. Looking for something? What could possibly be so important you had to go looking for it in the rain? Wasn't everywhere. It was in the trash. Scarlett's breathing evened out, and she fell silent. Did you say? The trash. Vanessa didn't need a mirror to know her face was a perfect mask of horror and disbelief. An image flashed in her mind. A beautiful girl, drenched to the bone in a torrential downpour, frantically digging through a dumpster. Girl, are you insane? Vanessa's question was met with silence. Scarlett was already asleep again. A quick scan of the room revealed no medicine in sight. With a sigh, Vanessa shook her again. Did you take anything? No. Sleep will fix it. Always has, Scarlett grumbled, annoyed at being disturbed. She rolled over, pulling Vanessa down onto the bed with her in a clumsy attempt to make her sleep too. Scarlett's entire body radiated heat. Even her breath was hot. She wrapped a long, slender leg around Vanessa's, trapping her. Vanessa found herself staring at the smooth curve of Scarlett's thigh. But she wasn't seduced. She sighed and extricated herself. If you just sleep, you're going to cook your brain. She started searching the room for a thermometer and fever reducers. If she couldn't find any, she'd have to go out and buy them. It was infuriating. When Vanessa had been sick, Scarlett had been a whirlwind of efficiency. Now that it was her turn, her solution was to sleep it off. After rummaging through several drawers, Vanessa finally found a small, clear case with a thermometer and some pills. Here, take your temperature. Fortunately, a sleeping Scarlett was more compliant than an awake one. A few minutes later, after putting a kettle on, Vanessa returned with a glass of water and the pills, setting them on the white nightstand. The moment she checked the thermometer, her brow furrowed. 102. 6, she exclaimed, looking at Scarlett, who was still clinging to the bear. If I hadn't come, you really would have fried your brain. Take the medicine. Startled awake by her sharp tone, Scarlett slowly sat up, took the pills and water, and swallowed them mechanically. Vanessa let out a breath and drew the curtains, plunging the room into dimness. Now all she could do was wait. Thank God she'd come when she did. She still couldn't figure out what had gotten into their academic advisor, who had texted her out of the blue telling her not to be embarrassed and to get herself checked out. Whatever. At least she got the day off. She sat beside Scarlett, scrolling through her phone. Seriously, digging through dumpsters in a storm. Vanessa started to laugh, then sighed. "You one of a kind. What were you looking for?" "The deed to your penthouse." "Something Lucas gave me." Scarlett mumbled from under the covers, only her hair visible on the pillow. "Let me sleep." Vanessa froze. "Fina, sleep," she said, her voice softening. She watched Scarlett's sleeping form, her expression growing complex. "If you had this much devotion in you, where was it before? If you had done something like this before Lucas gave up, he would have proposed the next day. What's the point now? You either couldn't admit your feelings for him, or you couldn't see the unwavering security he gave you, and you messed around until it was too late. Any other girl could be confused because of her parents' messy divorce, but not you. No one has ever been better to you than Lucas Carter." Her thoughts trailed off. In the end, she reached out and gently touched Scarlett's forehead again. She couldn't help but feel a pang of pity. At 8 p.m., dusk had settled, and the room was dark save for the slivers of city light peeking through the curtains. Scarlett's fever had broken, and she slowly opened her eyes, feeling drained. "You're awake?" Vanessa said softly. "Here, drink some water." "Sorry to trouble you," Scarlett said, taking the glass and downing it in one go. Vanessa looked at her with a mix of amusement and exasperation. "What did you dream about?" Scarlett stiffened, then slowly shook her head. "Nothing." Vanessa didn't believe her for a second. "Nothing? Then why were you calling out Lucas's name?" "If you heard me, why ask?" Scarlett shot back, hugging the teddy bear even tighter. "I thought you said you were coming after class. I wasn't even awake this afternoon." She frowned, trying to recall the hazy events of the day. A horrifying thought surfaced. She whipped her head around to look at Vanessa. "If you tell anyone about the dumpster thing, I will end you." The thought of anyone knowing made her stomach churn. Vanessa shrugged. She wasn't a gossip. The advisor wasn't going to approve my leave, so I was going to come after class. But right after entrepreneurship, he messaged me and said it was approved. He even told me to get a proper checkup. All I told him was that I had bad cramps. Scarlett stared at her, the words sinking in. Then, she buried her face deep into the teddy bear's fur, clutching it with all her might, her body starting to tremble. "Lucas got it for you," she said, her voice muffled. "What? Who else in our class is that tight with the advisor?" Vanessa thought about it and realized she was right. She had been a little dense. "I want to call him," Scarlett said with a bitter smile, pulling out her phone and dialing the number that had once been her solution to everything. But all she heard was a cold, robotic voice. "We're sorry. The user you're trying to reach is currently on another call." The phone slipped from her limp grasp onto the bed. She said nothing more, just buried her face back into the bear, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She knew that if she hadn't made mistake after mistake, Lucas would be right here, taking care of her. Vanessa watched her friend weep, her own eyes welling with tears. All she could do was sigh and pour her another glass of water. Lucas quietly ended the call and looked up at the two girls chatting on the hospital bed. Even after the 4, Lily still had no appetite and had only managed a few crackers. Erin, on the other hand, was happily crunching her way through a bag of potato chips. "Well, if you guys are good, I'm going to head out. I'll be back in the morning," Lucas said, getting up from the pull-out visitor's chair. Go. Don't disturb my quality time with Lily," Erin said, chin held high. Then she looked at him, her eyes blinking curiously. "Why do you look so down?" "Grown-up business. Don't worry your little head about it." "Oomph." Lucas walked over to Lily and poked her forehead. "Eat something later." Seeing her nod, he smiled gently. Suddenly, a ridiculously catchy anime ringtone blared through the room. Lucas shot Erin a look of disgust. She just answered the phone, completely unfazed. "Hey, Mom. What's up?" "Yeah, I'm on campus." "What? You and Dad are here? What are you guys doing here?" Erin froze, her mouth hanging open. Though Lucas couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, he could piece it together from her panicked expression. "Why don't you just get a hotel for the night? I'll come meet you tomorrow. I've got something going on." "I'm not in a hotel with a boy." "You're leaving tomorrow?" "Okay, fine, I'll be right there." Erin hung up and let out a massive sigh. She looked at Lucas and Lily, her face a mask of gloom. "My parents are here. If I don't go back to the dorm, they'll think I'm shacking up with some guy." "Your parents came all this way for a surprise inspection?" Lucas commented before he could stop himself. "No, I told you, my health isn't great. They were probably just worried." "What's wrong with you?" "Shut up," she snapped and hugged Lily tightly. "I'm so sorry. I really didn't expect this." She turned to face Lucas. "Lily, you have to protect yourself. No matter what he says, don't fall for it. You hear me? If you have to, just scream for a doctor. What are you looking at me for? I'm a gentleman. You didn't even ask if I wanted to stay, and you're already treating me like a predator. How rude. Lucas's face was a stony mask of indignation. Suddenly, Aaron flashed him a fanged grin. Just kidding. The organization trusts you. Thanks for covering tonight. Lily just looked back and forth between them, utterly bewildered as the handover was completed. The thought that she would be spending the entire night in a hospital room with Lucas made her head swim, and she nervously looked down. Now I'll never be able to repay him. What do I do? Erin left her huge bag of snacks for Lucas and lingered for a few more minutes until a second, more insistent call from her mom finally sent her scrambling for the door. I'll say it one more time. I'm not in a hotel with a boy. The door slammed shut, and the room was quiet again. It was only then that it fully hit Lucas. He was staying here to take care of Lily. Alone. All night. It was kind of exciting. Seeing Lily nervously wringing her hands again, Lucas said softly, "Don't be nervous. I'm a gentleman." She nodded slightly. "I believe you, but I'm not as easygoing as Aaron. Now that you're in my hands, don't even think about resisting." Lily froze. Not a gentleman. What happened? The act didn't even last 2 sentences. She scrambled to the head of the bed, pulling the covers up to her chin, her wide eyes blinking at him over the blanket. Lucas found this hilarious. "I mean, you have to eat your dinner," he clarified. "I'm going to order you some porridge. If you don't finish it, you'll regret it." He wondered if she had any idea that acting this way only made him want to tease her more. She practically had "I'm gullible, please trick me" written on her forehead. I will," Lily squeaked obediently. A little while later, as Lucas was texting his roommates that he wouldn't be back, Lily's voice cut through the quiet. "Lucas." He looked up. "What's up?" She hesitated, then summoned her courage. "Can we go back?" I don't want to stay in the hospital." Lucas was confused. It couldn't be that she didn't want to be with him. She wouldn't have waited this long to say something. He was sure she didn't dislike being around him, or she never would have fallen asleep so quickly in the gazebo. "Why?" he asked. Lily looked down, her hands gripping the white blanket. After a long pause, she spoke. "I hate this place." She had never heard a single piece of good news here. Not about her father, not about her mother. The glaring lights, the smell of disinfectant. It all brought back memories of her mother, lost and helpless, asking for directions, and of herself, a small child trailing behind, unable to do anything. The memory of her father's resigned sighs, back when her mother could still walk. Lucas understood completely. He reached out his right hand, intending to take hers, but thought better of it. Instead, he gently stroked her head, his fingers sinking into her soft hair. "You eat your dinner and get some rest," he said, his voice a soothing balm. "And tomorrow, we'll leave. The moment you wake up, we'll go." "Okay." Lily didn't pull away. His touch was comforting, anchoring. "Okay," she whispered, her head unconsciously tilting into his hand. The slow-acting girl didn't realize it, but the seed of affection Lucas's kindness had planted in her heart was, in that moment, breaking through the soil. A few minutes later, the food arrived. Lucas reluctantly pulled his hand back to get the door. "How come delivery is never this fast when I'm starving?" He sat beside her with a container of porridge. "Open up." I want to eat it myself." "No, you don't. You're the patient. Let me do my job." Night deepened. The hospital was quiet, the hallways empty except for 2 nurses at the station. Lucas had left only a small lamp on, its soft glow illuminating him while Lily slept peacefully in the dimness a few feet away. His patient and persistent feeding had paid off. He'd managed to trick her into eating most of the porridge. He smiled, satisfied, and looked back down at his phone. Just as he did, the screen went black. "Crap, I was in such a hurry, I forgot my charger." He walked quietly to Lily's bedside and gently poked her cheek. "Hey, can I borrow your phone? I need to use it to find a portable charger rental." She hummed in her sleep, nuzzling her cheek against his finger. "Okay." Lucas carefully picked up her phone. "What's your password?" "Your birthday." "Your birthday." After murmuring the words, Lily drifted back to sleep, leaving Lucas frozen, his fingers still hovering where her phone had been. "My birthday." A few seconds later, he pulled his hand back and turned to leave, a strange, wide smile spreading across his face. It was so unsettling that it caught the attention of the nurses at the station, who exchanged a look. If he weren't so handsome, they would have thought a creep was wandering the halls. He was back in minutes with a portable charger, having sprinted back, not wanting to leave Lily alone for long. He zipped past the nurse's station again, startling the 2 women for a second time. "What is with all the weirdos tonight?" "I think that was the handsome guy again." Back in the room, Lucas closed the door without a sound. He plugged in his phone, then walked over to put Lily's back on her nightstand. As he did, his thumb brushed the bottom of the screen, and he inadvertently caught a glimpse of her notes app. There was a lot of text. He was curious what she wrote about. Lucas wasn't interested in prying into people's privacy, unless he saw his own name. He opened the app. It was a ledger. Part of it tracked her income and future expenses, the other part her past spending. At the very top were the projected costs for her mother's checkups and future surgery. Mom's surgery, $25,000. Scrolling past the medical expenses, he found his own name. Lucas's DSLR camera, $1, 800 below. It was a diary-like entry. I hope I can get Mom better soon. Then I can start saving to buy a camera for Lucas. He looked so sad when he talked about it, and he tried to smile when he saw me looking at him. He probably thinks I'm too dumb to notice, but I did. I just want him to be happy. He's like a ray of sunlight in my dark life, so I want his smile to be just as bright. You can do it, Lily. Further down, she had logged his likes and dislikes. That he hated fish and bittermelon, things he'd mentioned once in passing. He'd complained offhandedly that his phone camera sucked, and she had etched the dream of buying him a real one into her heart. The phone's light illuminated his face, reflecting in his glistening eyes. His pupils dilated slightly. Her own expenses were at the very bottom. Unlike the other sections, there wasn't a single thing she wanted for herself. Just groceries and personal necessities. The most recent purchase was an article of clothing. It cost less than $10. In that instant, everything clicked into place. He finally understood why she had been working so relentlessly, why she had pushed herself to the point of collapse. A bittersweet smile touched Lucas's lips. He looked at the sleeping girl, her chest rising and falling with each steady breath. It was like she had two different personalities. She was willing to plan in the thousands for her mom and for him, but for herself, she would only spare a few dollars. She probably had no idea how long it would take to reach those goals. She was just focused on getting there, one day at a time. What stunned him most was that his name was second only to her mother's, while she had placed herself at the very end of the list. He stood there for a long time, then sniffled and quietly closed the app. But he didn't move. He just stood there, watching her sleep. After a while, Lily's eyes fluttered open. She saw Lucas standing over her and jumped, then relaxed when she realized who it was. She burrowed deeper under the covers. "Why aren't you sleeping?" she asked timidly, secretly touching her cheek, which was burning hot. He couldn't have been watching me this whole time. Could he? She quickly checked the corner of her mouth for drool. A small smile played on Lucas's lips. "You were talking in your sleep. Didn't you know? Huh?" The uniquely dumbfounded sound escaped her lips again. She looked at him mortified. "What did I say?" Lucas just kept smiling, letting her imagination run wild. He hadn't actually come up with a lie yet. Lily's mind raced, the agony of not knowing making her feel like ants were crawling all over her skin. "Go back to sleep. It's still early," he whispered, tucking the blanket around her like she was a small child. Lily glanced at the hard, foldable visitor's chair. "Do you want to sleep on the bed?" she asked in a small voice. Lucas froze. Did I just hear what I think I heard? He turned his head to look at her, half her face hidden by the covers. "What did you say?" Lily realized how that must have sounded and quickly sat up. "Don't get the wrong idea. I meant I can sleep on the floor." Lucas was speechless for a moment. "You really should have just not explained." He sighed. "You're the patient. Get some rest." He unwrapped another piece of candy. "Have you noticed you've been a little more cheerful lately? This is your reward." He decided to start carrying candy with him for her, just in case. He held the fruit candy to her lips. Lily stared at him. Then a thought seemed to occur to her. "If I let you feed me, will you sleep on the bed?" "I've already slept for a long time," she bargained. That folding chair looked incredibly uncomfortable. Lucas chuckled. "Ms. Thompson, you need to understand your current situation. You're in no position to negotiate. I suggest you cooperate, or you'll regret it." Lily pouted but obediently opened her mouth to accept the candy. And then she bit him. "Ow!" Lucas yelped, instinctively yanking his hand back, his heart suddenly hammering. He shook his hand, frowning. "She got me again." She started to fight back. "This is new. I need to be on guard." He was plotting his revenge when he looked up and saw her smiling at him, a shy but triumphant little grin. Her clear eyes danced with mirth. Her thin, rosy lips were smiling. Her sparkling eyes were smiling, and the two shallow dimples at the corners of her mouth were smiling. In that moment, he wished his eyes were a camera, so he could capture this image and burn it into his memory forever. Even in the dim light, the brilliance of her smile left Lucas momentarily stunned. He only snapped out of it when his phone chimed with a notification, the sound allowing him to hear his own heartbeat again. "I'm biting you back," he declared, even though her little nibble hadn't hurt at all. Lily immediately dove back under the covers, a mix of regret and fear in her voice. "I'm sorry." The thrill of her own boldness had faded, and her usual self-doubt and inhibitions came rushing back. Her cheeks were on fire, and she felt a mortifying urge to cry. Suppressing her feelings was her instinct, a necessary defense mechanism, at least until she was capable of supporting her family. But the emotional dam she had painstakingly built to care for her mother had been steadily crumbling ever since she'd met Lucas. When you have a safe place to cry, you allow yourself to be weak. Lucas let out a victorious chuckle. "I'll let you off this time." He knew he had to protect this newfound courage of hers. The best thing to do was to act as if nothing had happened. He smoothly changed the subject, and Lily gratefully went along with it. She let out a quiet sigh of relief, her emotions slowly settling. Some of Lucas's kindness was direct and easy to feel. Other parts were more subtle, things she couldn't quite understand yet. Lily sat on the edge of the bed, while Lucas sat in the chair beside her. In the soft glow of the nightlight, they talked in low whispers, as if not to disturb the quiet of the night. For a moment, he almost forgot they were in a hospital, aware only of the peaceful silence and the girl's soft voice. After a while, something seemed to occur to him, and he looked at her with a serious expression. "Please just slow down, okay? Everything will work out. I'll be here with you, and we'll take it one step at a time." His voice was firm but gentle. Lily looked up at him, and for a reason he couldn't explain, he saw a flicker of defiance in her eyes. Because she was in a hurry. There were so many things she wanted to do, things she wouldn't let herself do until after her mother's surgery. She wanted, more than anything, to reach the point where they could face life head-on, just like they talked about. Only then could she give the boy in front of her the gift she had picked out, even if it took her a long time to save for it. But by then her mother would be happy, and she would have all the time in the world to pursue her own happiness, to do things that would make him happy. Only then could she be by his side, without any reservations. Lucas was taken aback. It was the first time he had ever seen the timid, almost frail Lily look at him with such a determined, almost desperate expression. It was both shocking and intriguing. For all his perceptiveness, he couldn't begin to guess what was going through her mind. Their upbringings were too different. Some gaps couldn't be bridged by empathy alone. Those could only be filled by time. He stood up and flicked her forehead. "That's for not listening to me." Lily rubbed the spot, looking wounded. "I do listen. I'll be careful. I'll rest." "Well, resting is a start." Lucas smiled at her. "I've said my piece. The only thing left to do is support you." Lily was surprised. She had expected him to be angry, but he was respecting her decision. He seemed to support her in everything, even telling her it was okay if she didn't like tutoring because of the social aspect, rather than just lecturing her on the pros and cons and telling her it was for her own good. "Why aren't you angry?" she asked tentatively. Now, it was his turn to be confused. "Why would I be angry?" She thought for a long time before murmuring, "Because what you said was right, but I'm not doing what you wanted." She thought he would feel like all his effort had been wasted. Lucas tried to follow her convoluted logic, and after a moment, he thought he understood. He chuckled. "It's normal to disagree. Besides, I'm not always right. When I give you advice, I often forget to consider what you want. For example, I tend to forget that you don't like talking to strangers. You're supposed to have your own thoughts." He poked her soft cheek again. "Nobody has the right to demand you change into someone they like, including me. You just need to do what you want to do." Seeing her dazed expression, he couldn't help but smile again. He walked over to the hard visitor's chair. "Get some sleep. We'll leave as soon as you wake up." Lily watched his blurry figure, her eyes shimmering. "But I am willing. I'm willing to become the person you like, just as you're willing to respect my wishes. The only reason I didn't listen this time is because I want to get to that future faster." A few days later, after class, Lucas stared at his phone. Lily hadn't replied to his text from hours ago. He thought back to the part-time job listings he'd seen in a group chat while at the hospital. "I'll check the campus mail center." Sure enough, he found her there, a whirlwind of activity behind the counter. He stood at a distance, watching her, once again fighting the urge to go over and force her to rest. Just like at the mall, he pulled out his phone and called her. "Hello, what's wrong?" she asked softly. Lucas paused, suddenly at a loss for words. She didn't press him, just waited quietly. For a moment, the only sound on the line was the faint, steady rhythm of their breathing. Finally, he spoke. "You just got better. Make sure you're resting." I know. Okay. I'm hanging up now." "Oh, okay." She sounded confused, clearly not understanding the point of the call. It was only then that Lucas realized she always pressed the phone tightly to her ear, waiting until long after the disconnect tone before reluctantly pulling it away. Lily rested her head on the counter for a moment, then stood up, stretched her neck, and wearily went back to work. He dialed another number. Ryan, how much does that mail center job pay a month? How would I know? I know you don't know. That's why I'm telling you to go find out. Damn it. Fine, I'll ask. 2 minutes later, a WhatsApp message from Ryan came through. $200. That was the monthly salary for a student working there. To buy the Sony DSLR camera in her online shopping cart, she would have to work for nearly a year. What do you do when a girl is willing to do that for you? Lucas asked himself. The answer came quickly. He put the phone back to his ear, his gaze fixed on the girl in the distance, and dialed. He didn't wait for the person on the other end to speak. Jason, let's do something big. That's right. I'm in. After hanging up, Lucas moved the phone away from his ear just in time. As expected, a loud burst of noise erupted from the speaker. Holy crap. You really mean it? Jason yelled, so loudly it sounded like he'd spit out whatever he was eating. Yeah, Lucas said calmly. But we need to talk details. I'll see you back at the dorm. Okay. I'll be waiting. Jason's voice was electric with excitement. Lucas hung up and watched Lily for another moment. She was still diligently sorting packages, placing each one in its proper slot. Every so often she would bow her head to read a label, her hair falling forward, and she would gently tuck it back behind her ear. He realized with a jolt that ever since he'd told her he liked her hair down, she had rarely worn it in a ponytail. Lily seemed to sense a stationary figure in the distance and looked up curiously, but she saw nothing. Only a gentle breeze rustling the leaves on the trees. The moment Lucas walked into their dorm room, Jason materialized beside him like a ghost. Spill, what made you finally change your mind? Lucas tilted his head deadpan. I'm starting to think this is the worst decision of my life. Screw you. Jason laughed, grabbing the car keys from his desk and caressing them for a moment. He looked up at Lucas. Come on, let's go for a drive. Lucas didn't ask why. He just went. The black Mercedes cruised down the road, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. Jason took turns at familiar intersections, driving with no destination in mind. The Killers, Mr. Brightside blasted from the speakers as they talked. You've changed, my son, Jason said suddenly. In what way have I changed, Dad? Lucas shot back, refusing to be baited. Jason tapped the steering wheel triumphantly, a grin on his face. It was as if his whole plan was only now truly real with Lucas on board. You have, though. You're not aimless anymore. Just yesterday, you were still trying to decide whether to coast through life or actually try. Lucas smirked. So you admit I'm your dad? Jason momentarily considered swerving into oncoming traffic just to shut him up. He was trying to have a moment, and Lucas was pulling this. So ungrateful. So why? Jason asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. If you don't mind me asking. Lucas looked at the sun, a fiery orange ball sinking between distant skyscrapers, and smiled. Because some dummy is working herself to the bone to save up and buy me a camera. So isn't it only fair that I go out and get a job for her? It was the same principle, really, both of them doing everything they could to make the other's wish come true. Jason grimaced as if he'd just swallowed a lemon. And you call what we're about to do getting a job? Oh, right. Speaking of which, Lucas said, his expression turning serious. When we team up, I'm taking the lead. He paused. And don't worry, I'm not freeloading. I'm putting my own money in. Their friendship was exactly why he had to draw that line. He trusted Jason completely. The guy would take a bullet for him, but he wouldn't trust him to run a business. They'd be bankrupt in a week. Jason nearly choked on his cigarette. He thought Lucas was about to drop some major bombshell. That's it? That's what you were so serious about? He scoffed. I told you before, man. I'd follow your lead, even if you didn't put in a dime. Lucas smiled, looking out the window. Guess I'm pretty important then. After a moment, he added, it's insane how much you trust me. Jason cracked the window, letting out a slow plume of smoke. It'll be June soon. When the new freshmen arrive in September, we'll have known each other for 3 years. Maybe that's not a long time, but you're my best friend. That's the main reason I trust you. The secondary reason is that you're actually brilliant. I'm not an idiot. I wouldn't be begging you to be my partner if you were useless. I know you've got the skills, but that's really the secondary part. When did we even get close? Lucas asked suddenly. Jason's face broke into a grin at the memory. Man, I couldn't stand you when we first moved in. I thought my good looks would make me a king on campus, girls lining up. Then I walked into our room and saw you. Damn it, I still hate you for that. Because of you, I didn't get a single date with a girl from our class until I finally won Vanessa over. He took a drag from his cigarette. Then, when the advisor asked for class president nominations, I stood up, and I was so relieved when you didn't. But then you went and helped Scarlett behind the scenes, you sneaky bastard. I couldn't stand you. He trailed off, trying to pinpoint the exact moment they'd become friends, but came up empty. I think it was after that first all-nighter we pulled, playing games in my room, Lucas offered. The truth was, neither of them remembered when they had become best friends or when they had started calling each other dad. That's how it was with guys. You remembered anniversaries with your girlfriend, but with your best friend? You drew a blank. Jason suddenly pointed out the window. Remember this place? That time Ryan and I almost got into a huge fight, and you dragged us both to that arcade right there. He squinted. Holy crap. When did it become a yoga studio? They drove aimlessly until night fell. The city lights flickered on, illuminating the high-rises around them. Jason pulled over by a bridge overlooking the dark, swirling waters of the Hudson River. He got out and lit another cigarette, the embers glowing in the darkness. He took a deep breath. Okay, I'm over this car. I'll sell it in a few weeks, and we'll go for broke. I won't regret trying this with you. Even if we fail, when I'm old and I look back, I'll just smile. At least I tried, and I did it with my best friend. Lucas looked at him like he was an idiot. Who said anything about selling your car? Jason froze, the cigarette nearly falling from his lips. Then where are we going to get the money? Lucas leaned against the railing, letting the night wind whip through his hair. A confident smile played on his lips. Now that I'm in, I've got a plan. Before Jason could even ask, Lucas pulled out his phone, scrolling through a memo filled with research he'd already done. There's an indie game jam in Seattle next month, only open to university students. He spoke with a quiet intensity. If we can place, doesn't even have to be first, just something decent, we can apply for a student venture grant from the university. It's a full $15,000. Then if we play our cards right, we could get a free workspace at the UW Startup Incubator, he continued. That right there saves us a fortune. Jason just stared, the gears in his head slowly turning. It took him a moment to realize what was missing. Okay, but who's going to actually make it? He asked. Lucas knew some coding, but Jason was completely clueless. He'd signed on to be the money man. Lucas waved a dismissive hand. The people are the easy part. I can handle some of the programming, so I count as half a person. For the rest, we'll just poach a few guys from the engineering department. He turned and leaned against the railing, his voice dropping. It won't even cost much. $400 a month won't get you a professional, but it'll definitely get you a college student. He smirked. Hell, we might not even have to pay that much. Before we talk salary, we sell them on the vision. Trust me, there are plenty of kids out there, just like you, who will jump at the chance to build something cool. What was a startup if you couldn't sell a dream? As long as you had the ability to actually deliver on that dream, it was fine. He wasn't going to be some saint, but he sure as hell wasn't going to be one of those startup bros who promised the world and then ghosted everyone on payday. Jason took a long moment to process Lucas's entire plan. He was torn between feeling incredibly lucky he'd roped Lucas into this and feeling a depressing certainty that he would never, ever be on his level. He flicked his half-smoked cigarette to the ground, grinding it out with his shoe. Damn, Carter, you're a sneaky bastard. In that moment, Jason understood with painful clarity that if Lucas wanted to, he could easily be the exact type of person Lucas had just described. The kind of sucker who not only bought the dream, but happily funded it. They both had a head on their shoulders. So how could the gap between them be so vast? Lucas just shrugged. Don't be dramatic. If this works, they'll be the founding members. You think we'd screw them over? As for anyone who might jump ship after the first paycheck, Lucas didn't care. As long as the core framework was solid, the cogs in the machine were always replaceable. You do the work, I give you the money. A simple transaction, no feelings involved. Jason nodded, finally getting it. So what do? Just write checks. He suddenly felt the urge to sell his car and throw more money in the pot. Lucas's plan felt so complete that Jason's involvement seemed almost optional, which stung a little. Lucas laughed. Of course you're putting money in. You're my number two. In the beginning, you'll handle all the stuff I don't have time for, including all the grunt work. Once we get bigger, you're the creative director. Your impulsive, idea-minute personality is perfect for it. And your thick skin, Lucas thought. That job came with a lot of criticism. Jason grinned. Done. All he really wanted was to be a part of making a game. He didn't care about titles or how big his cut was. At the end of the day, this was about making up for the dream his dad had forced him to abandon when he changed his major. He knew he didn't have Lucas's discipline or talent to teach himself coding. This was more than he could have hoped for. Lucas swiped through his phone, giving the plan one last review before locking the screen. So that's the gist, he said seriously. If we can't make this work, then selling your car to invest more would be pointless anyway. Jason watched him, seeing the focused, methodical person Lucas had become. He thought about the stack of books on game design piled on Lucas's desk and felt a lump form in his throat. Lucas, he said, his voice thick. Thank you. He knew Lucas wasn't just doing this because he was moved by what Lily had done. He was also doing it for him. indulging his crazy idea. A guy like Lucas could do anything he wanted. He didn't need to get tangled up in Jason's video game fantasy. Ugh, you're disgusting, Lucas said, faking a gag. Then a real smile broke through. Don't thank me. We're dads for. He clapped Jason on the shoulder. The competition is at the end of June, so things are about to get crazy. We can discuss everything, but I get final say. When you were this close with someone, you had to lay down the rules. That way, if things went south, it wouldn't completely destroy the friendship. Jason nodded slowly. All right then, Lucas said with another smile. If this works, we're Carter and Miller, CEOs. If it doesn't, we're Carter and Miller, nobodies. Could you try to be a little more optimistic, you asshole? Jason shot back. Lucas thought for a second, then decided on a more formal tone. The future is bright, Mr. Miller. Jason leaned in close, glanced around conspiratorially, and whispered, Who's Mr. Brightside? Ryan had said he was deep in LSAT prep, and Dylan was chained to his desk finishing his senior engineering project. So, in the end, it was just Lucas and Jason who went out for Korean barbecue. As he'd read their texts, Lucas had felt a familiar pang of melancholy. Though graduation wasn't until senior year, it felt like everyone was already starting to splinter off after junior year. The end was getting closer. It was nearly 10 p.m. when they got back to the dorms. The area was mostly deserted. The late spring air, on the cusp of June, was filled with the chirping of crickets. Seattle's summer nights were never truly quiet. The bushes teemed with enough insect life to fill a museum. The girl you love might not always be around, but mosquitoes would. Lucas practically had to hold Jason up as they staggered toward the dorm entrance. He shot a weary look at his friend. He still couldn't figure out how, in the time it took him to drink one beer, Jason had managed to down a whole pitcher. Was this how people with high tolerances celebrated? Jason Miller, Jason slurred, his arm draped heavily over Lucas's shoulder. Having you, as a brother, is all I need in this life. For real. Then call me Dad, Lucas deadpanned. He was completely sober, mostly because he hadn't had the chance to get drunk. For every one of his beers, Jason had slammed 3. There was no keeping up. Just as they reached the entrance, they saw a slender figure crouched by the door. She was leaning against the locked entrance, hugging her knees tightly to her chest. She sat silently under the harsh glow of the security light, a stark contrast to her usual confident demeanor. The white light casting down on her made her look almost tragic. When Scarlett Montgomery saw Lucas, she finally pushed herself to her feet. He had no idea how long she'd been squatting there, but her legs wobbled as she stood, and she had to steady herself against the door. It was hard to reconcile the girl in front of him with the one who never backed down. All 3 of them froze, just as Lucas decided to pretend he hadn't seen anything and steer Jason inside. Scarlett closed the distance between them in 3 quick steps. The hem of her dark dress swirled around her like a flower. She'd already made up her mind. Even if Lucas stood still, or even started to walk away, she would run after him. So what if she had to run until she was half dead? It was nothing compared to all the years he had spent chasing her. She held up a small paper bag she was carrying. I bought you chocolate croissants, she said softly. From that little French place you love. That bakery was on the other side of the city, at least a 40-minute drive each way. Over an hour and a half, round trip. Lucas didn't know how long she'd spent in the car, or how long she'd been crouching here like an abandoned child, feeding the mosquitoes, drawing curious stares. But the truth was, he didn't really want to know anymore. Even fire eventually burns out. His heart never stood a chance. The only thing he hoped for now was a clean break. Jason, sensing the tension, tactfully stumbled into the dorm, leaving them alone. But he didn't go far. He lit a cigarette a short distance away, shamelessly watching the drama unfold. Seeing Lucas let out a soft sigh, clearly unwilling to engage, Scarlett's expression fell further. She held the bag out to him again, her hands trembling slightly. Just have a bite. 2 bites, that's all, she pleaded, her voice barely a whisper. Please. She fought back tears. She had prepared herself for this, but when it actually happened, the pain was still a sharp, cold needle in her chest. The boy who was always so good to her, who always smiled at her, whose eyes used to be filled with only her. It felt like he was gone for good. A wave of overwhelming sadness washed over her. Regret churned inside her like a relentless tide. At the same time, she realized with chilling clarity that regret was useless. Lucas looked at her with a detached weariness. Forget it, he said, his voice flat. I just ate. And besides, I don't like those. Scarlett froze. She hid her trembling hands behind her back and bit her lip. But you've always loved them. Since we were kids. Her voice was frail. I remember everything you liked to eat. He always used to beg for them when they were kids, even in elementary school. Because of that, her mom always kept some at the house for when he came over to play. A tremor ran through her. More than the thought of Lucas no longer liking the croissants, she was terrified that Lucas no longer liked her. A complex smile touched Lucas's lips. "Think harder," he said, his voice laced with a bitter irony. "Back then, when my parents or your parents bought them for me, who ended up eating most of them?" Scarlett lowered her gaze. "I did," she whispered. "Back then, Lucas would always eat a few bites and stop. He got yelled at for it all the time, yelled at for wasting food he'd specifically asked for. But he never stopped asking for them, never stopped saying they were his favorite. And she had been like a child, oblivious, taking his kindness for granted and trampling all over it." Seeing her standing there, stunned into silence, Lucas's face was etched with exhaustion. "Do you get it now?" he asked. Scarlett nodded numbly. She bit her lower lip so hard she tasted the salty, metallic tang of blood. A sudden, sharp anger at herself flared up. How could she be so blind, even now? Lucas said nothing more. He turned and walked toward the dorm, leaving her with one final sentence. "Let's just leave each other alone. It's better for you and for me." He'd only taken 2 steps when he felt a hand grab his arm. "I don't want to," Scarlett whispered, one hand holding onto him, the other wiping away the tears that finally fell. "Don't push me away. Please." Her voice broke. We grew up together. I've never, ever imagined a life without you. I'll make it up to you. I'll be as good to you as you once were to me." In that moment, she cast aside every last shred of her pride. So what if she had to beg? It was nothing. If it meant getting Lucas back, she would do anything. Just as a sliver of hope began to flicker within her, she saw him let out another heavy sigh. "Let go," he said, his voice low and firm. "Let's not make this ugly." The meaning was clear. "I'm leaving, and you can't stop me. Let go now before this gets even more pathetic." Under his unwavering gaze, Scarlett's fingers slowly, reluctantly, uncurled. It felt like every millimeter of movement cost her an immense amount of strength. She never thought she would be the one so desperate for his touch. She knew his tactics wouldn't work on him. Throwing a tantrum would only backfire, making him dislike her even more. She couldn't bear that. All she could do was stare at him through her blurry vision, try to burn the image of his face into her memory. "Go home," Lucas said. He didn't wait for a reply, turning and walking away without a backward glance. Each step felt heavy. Scarlett stood frozen for a long time before she finally turned to leave. Vanessa emerged from the shadows, her expression a mixture of pity and frustration. "You have to get over it. You knew you were going to get the cold shoulder." Scarlett looked down at her phone's lock screen, a picture of the two of them from the last time they'd been happy together. She wiped the tears from her cheeks with the back of her hand. She was crying and smiling at the same time, a forced display of strength. "It's fine. This is just the beginning." She couldn't expect him to be as kind to her as he used to be. But at least he had spoken to her. Vanessa said nothing. She knew Scarlett had never been humbled like this before. She also knew that Scarlett deserved it. At least, if she wasn't ready to give up. "You're more determined than I thought," Vanessa said honestly. "My determination is only going to get stronger," Scarlett replied, her gaze fixed on the dorm entrance, even though Lucas was long gone, replaced by a few moths fluttering in the light. "Because now I finally understand how he felt back then." The more she put herself in his shoes, the more she realized just how much he must have loved her. "I'm not giving up," she vowed. "He chased me for 7 years. I can chase him for 7. Or 14, if that's what it takes. Everything he did for me, I can do for him. Every single thing." As she spoke, her vision blurred again. "But in 14 years, I'll be 35. That's so old. I won't be able to show you the best version of myself anymore. Can't you just come back to me a little sooner?" Lucas shot a look at Jason, who was leaning against the wall smoking. "I knew you'd be watching." Jason turned his head, blowing a smoke ring away from them. He shrugged, grinning. "Hey, it's not every day you see the most beautiful girl on campus practically begging someone not to leave. It would have been a crime not to watch. If word of this got out, half the guys at UW would have a meltdown. The girl of their dreams, crying her eyes out for you. TSK tisk." Lucas couldn't be bothered. "The call is coming from inside the house," he muttered, heading up the stairs. "What's that supposed to mean?" Jason asked, confused. "It means as long as I'm with you. My movements are an open book," Lucas said over his shoulder. "You're Vanessa's informant, even if you don't mean to be." Jason thought back to his chat history with Vanessa from dinner and realized he had no defense. He followed Lucas up the stairs, his face a mask of guilt. That woman was dangerously clever. "She's gotten the cold shoulder from you twice now, and she still hasn't given up," Jason mused. "I barely recognize her anymore." It's not like I'm leading her on, Lucas said, his tone full of resignation. I've been as blunt as I can be. Her dad and my dad are so close. I can't just burn the bridge completely. There's nothing else I can do. She won't keep this up forever. A few more tries, and she'll get tired of it. He sighed. Next time she shows up, I'll just ignore her. If she wants to be mosquito bait, let her. Jason couldn't help but ask, doesn't it hurt to see her like that? You guys grew up together. You liked her for so long. He'd never been in that situation, so he couldn't imagine it. But even though Lucas was being decisive, Jason could tell he wasn't happy. Of course it hurts, Lucas admitted, not bothering to lie. He stopped and looked down at Jason from a few steps above. But is that a good enough reason to go back? Jason was stunned. Both Scarlett and Lucas had become completely unrecognizable when it came to this. The one who had pursued with such passion was now as cold as a glacier. And the one who had been pursued, who was as untouchable as the moon, was now the one desperately in love. It was baffling. Love was a strange, twisted thing. Its primary function seemed to be mutual torment. I think you're doing the right thing, Jason said, nodding in agreement. The sooner she moves on, the better for both of you. You can go your separate ways. No need to hurt her more. Scarlett's not like Bianca, after all. When Ryan finally figures things out, Jason thought, Bianca won't give a damn. To her, he's just one less fish in the sea. That was the difference between them. One had feelings she refused to act on. The other had none at all. Lucas just grunted in agreement. Whose youth didn't have regrets? The next afternoon, in a gazebo on campus, Lucas sat with his chin in his hand, staring blankly at his laptop. Across from him, Lily was quietly studying a list of English vocabulary words. He was scrolling through the entries and games from past Gigabit Future Game Dev competitions, trying to find a common thread. This competition was much better suited for them than the bigger ones that required a finished product. For this one, you just had to pass the initial screening, then build a prototype with a reasonably creative concept in 48 hours. The garbage you could code in that short time frame would be judged almost entirely on the idea. It leveled the playing field for newcomers like them. All they needed was to place somewhere in the middle. The whole point was just to get the university grant money. Lucas kept scrolling, muttering to himself. Finding coders is one thing, but we also need an artist. Nothing was ever simple. Still, a lot of the judges were well-known Twitch streamers and YouTubers. Maybe he could get an autograph from that one hyper streamer who was always rage-quitting. He sighed again. One step at a time. All beginnings are hard. What's wrong? Lily asked, looking up from her book when she heard his sigh. Just stressed, Lucas said, stretching. His gaze fell on the sweet-faced girl across from him. You haven't been feeling sick lately, have you? She shook her head. No. Good. Because if you work yourself into the hospital again, you'll see how I'll bully you, he said gruffly. The memory of Lucas feeding her in the hospital still made Lily blush. She waved her hands frantically. I won't. I really won't. Just as she was reliving the mortifying memory, Lucas pulled a piece of fruit candy from his pocket. He'd started carrying them ever since she fainted from hypoglycemia. Still looking at his screen, he unwrapped it with one hand and held it out to her. Open up. Lily clamped her mouth shut, her face turning bright red. I can do it myself. As she reached for it, Lucas pulled his hand back. His expression turned serious. What? Are you disgusted by me? I'm not, she said, looking wounded. Then why won't you eat it? Because. She trailed off. He held the candy out to her again. Hurry up. If you keep stalling, someone's going to see us. You already used that trick once, Lily countered, feeling a little smug. See? I can get smarter, too. I won't fall for the same thing twice. But then she saw his stern expression, and her confidence evaporated. She reluctantly opened her mouth, and, after a moment's hesitation, let him place the candy on her tongue. I never should have come here. Lucas looked up to see Erin Thompson standing there, grinding her teeth as she watched them. When he turned back, Lily had completely collapsed onto the stone table, hiding her face in her arms like an ostrich, only the tips of her crimson ears visible. Lucas blinked. Seriously, could you be any cuter? See? I told you to hurry up before someone saw, Lucas whispered to the top of Lily's head as Erin stormed over. Now look, how awkward. Lily, still hiding, nodded repeatedly, completely missing the flaw in his logic. I never should have asked where you two were. Erin fumed, slumping down next to Lily. Why did I come here to be salty? Wouldn't I be happier in my dorm watching anime? The more she thought about it, the more painful her third wheeling became. The main problem was that these two were getting more and more shameless. Before, it was just meaningful glances. Now they were hand-feeding each other. The nerve. After a moment, Lily finally sat up straight, letting Erin take her hand and flaunt it in front of Lucas. Lucas looked at Erin, completely unfazed. Enjoy it while you can, he thought. Why are your dark circles so bad? Is Mr. CEO really starting a company? Erin asked suddenly. For some reason, if any other guy in her class had told her he was starting a business, she would have laughed. But when Lucas said it, she somehow believed he could actually pull it off. Yeah, Lucas said, turning a pathetic look on Lily. And it's exhausting. So, can I have a hug? Huh, Lily was caught off guard. Weren't they just talking to Erin about the startup? How did the conversation suddenly pivot to her? Oh, what? Could you be any more of a dork? Lucas said with a grin. There was something undeniably cute about the soft, gentle way she said that. Erin stared for a second, then quickly wrapped her arms around Lily. What have you been doing to her when I'm not around? She shrieked, looking at Lucas as if he were some kind of creep. Lucas ignored her accusatory glare. I wasn't doing anything like this when you weren't here. This is purely for your benefit. He leaned back, looking smug. I'm just helping you get used to it now, so you don't make a big deal out of it later. Think of it as a kindness. If Erin was going to freak out over a piece of candy, he couldn't imagine how annoying she'd be later on. It was important to build up her tolerance. He didn't want to torment her, but she was an anime nerd, so she was fair game. Lucas, what is that supposed to mean? Erin sputtered, her canine teeth digging in her lip. Lily had completely lost focus on her English vocabulary. She felt like an entire afternoon of studying hadn't been as mentally taxing as trying to understand what Lucas just said. What did he mean, so you don't make a big deal out of it later? What was he planning to do? Lucas turned his attention back to his laptop. I'm about to be the boss of a game studio, he said, his face a perfect mask of seriousness. You should watch your tone. You never know, you might come crawling to me for a job one day. As if, Erin scoffed. She squeezed Lily's shoulder. Let's go. Don't suffer with him here. Come to my dorm and see my new drawing. I'm almost done with my saber. It's so cool. At the mention of drawing, Lucas, who had been slumping, immediately perked up. He leaned forward on the stone table. You can draw. Erin cleared her throat. How did you know I've actually been studying art since I was a kid? Lucas had never met anyone who loved to brag as much as she did. He slowly sat back down, his face deadpan. Because I'm your dad, obviously. He'd made a point to research a comeback after she'd pulled that line on him last time. You. If I wasn't afraid of making my Lily sad, I'd throw you into Puget Sound. Lucas saw the corner of Lily's mouth twitch into a smile, and he smiled too. He turned back to Erin, his tone suddenly serious. For real, though, I didn't know you could draw. Erin found that strange. It's not like the topic ever came up. I can't just announce it like I'm introducing myself, can I? You managed to announce getting on the university's website without anyone asking. Lucas thought, but he kept the jab to himself. In his eyes, Erin was now a fresh, new hire waiting to be exploited. Erin's a really good artist, Lily praised softly. Lucas nodded. Let me see. Hearing this, Erin unlocked her phone, opened her photo gallery, and slid it across the table to him. Not bad, right? All she needed was a pair of sunglasses to push up her nose to complete the look. Lucas scrolled through a few of her illustrations. They were good enough that if she posted process videos online, she could easily get tens of thousands of followers. The anime nerd concentration was high, though they were all fan art from various shows. He wondered why she hadn't majored in art. This is great, Lucas said, his praise genuine. How did you know I don't want to know. Thank you. Lucas cut her off before she could launch into another bragging spiel. If you're this good, why didn't you pick an art-related major? What can I say? My academic grades were just too good, Erin said with a smirk. Seeing Lucas's cold stare, she laughed and continued, I wanted to originally, but it's not a great career path where I'm from, and my health isn't the best, so I'll probably have to move back home after graduation. So, I picked a major that would make it easy to find a job anywhere. My parents don't care how much I make, as long as I'm close to them. Do you have a dream? Lucas asked, his expression completely straight. Erin tilted her head. A dream? Come be my artist. I'll pay you $400 a month. The workload will be light, I promise. Erin had to fight the urge to lick her lips. She was tempted. She'd only ever drawn as a hobby and never thought about making money from it, especially not making money off Lucas. The thought was pretty satisfying. She loved Otome and gacha games, and the idea of being an artist for one. It was exciting. Lucas couldn't quite read her expression, so he pressed on. Too little? How about $500 a month? For the amount of work I'll give you. It's practically free money. Lily knew Lucas's budget was higher, but she didn't know whose side to take. She just looked back and forth between them, fascinated by the negotiation. Lucas is so devious, she thought. He's a master manipulator. $500. Erin was sold. $500 was enough for a guaranteed 5-star character in her gacha game. Seeing her take the bait, Lucas relaxed. All right, final offer. $600. but you have to be on call whenever I need you. Deal, Aaron said without a moment's hesitation, completely unaware that Lucas's initial budget had been exactly $600. She just signed herself into an on-call contract for free. They both smiled and nodded, though for very different reasons. Lucas's smile lingered as he turned to Lily, placing a finger to his lips in a gesture. I'll send you the names of a few games. Go home and study their art styles, Lucas said, sending Aaron the message. He beamed with satisfaction. Pleasure doing business with you. You got it, Aaron said, immediately getting up to head back to her dorm, her mind already filled with the joy of a guaranteed 5-star character every month. A little hard work was nothing. Lucas watched her skip away and couldn't help but sigh. Was it really this easy to fool today's college students? Had they devolved to the point where all they knew was that they could eat 3 bowls of rice a meal? He suddenly felt very optimistic about his plan. He turned back to see Lily pouting at him. No wonder you're always tricking me, she mumbled. Don't worry, I wouldn't trick you like that. I tricked her for cheap labor. I could never do that to you. He leaned in. When I trick you, it's usually just because I want to get a little closer. See? Aren't I honest? Huh? Lily stared at him blankly. Why was he suddenly telling the truth? Forget it. Studying English was easier. They both enjoyed the quiet moments together, feeling the cool breeze as they worked on their own things. Whenever one of them felt tired, they could look up and see the person they most want to see right in front of them, and suddenly, they'd be re-energized. Lily's head was slightly bowed, a few strands of hair escaping from behind her ear to rest on her cheek. She seemed too engrossed to notice. She looked beautiful and gentle, a calming presence. The 10th time Lucas looked up at her, he realized the goofball had fallen asleep. She was resting peacefully on her arms, looking adorable. He turned his head and felt the breeze had become a little too cool. It might rain later. If he let her keep sleeping here, she would definitely catch a cold. He couldn't be bothered to complain about the fickle weather. He walked over to her side and gently shook her shoulder. Let me take you home. You'll get sick if you sleep here. Lily rubbed her eyes sleepily. I don't want to go back. Why not? Lucas asked, curious. Lily fiddled with her hands, her mouth opening and closing, but she couldn't bring herself to say the words. I want to stay with you, was a sentence still too difficult for her to form. Lucas didn't press her. He closed his laptop, put it in his bag, and said softly, if you don't want to go home, then come to my place. To your place? For what? Lily couldn't quite follow his logic. And the way he was looking at her right now, like a big bad wolf eyeing a little white rabbit, made her nervous. Lucas's face was a mask of innocence. You'll catch a cold sleeping here. You don't want to go home, so come sleep at my place. No, that's okay. I'm not tired anymore. Lily rubbed her eyes, tried to open them wide to prove her point. See? I'm wide awake. Lucas snorted, then suddenly adopted a serious tone. What are you afraid of? My parents aren't home. Lily felt a small wave of relief wash over her. Wait, no. Doesn't matter if they're home or not. It wouldn't be right for me to go to your house alone, Lily said, trying to refuse. A girl didn't just go to a guy's house to take a nap. What's the big deal? We're such good friends. Before she could reply, he continued. Besides, you have to tutor Emma tonight anyway. Think of it as just going over early. We can be sneaky about it. No one will know. As long as you're not in my room when Emma gets back, it'll be fine. He watched her twist a piece of paper in her hands, his expression dead serious. This goofball really needed a rest. He'd bet his life that if she touched a pillow right now, she'd be out cold. Could you please not say things that are so easy to misunderstand? Lily finally caught the implication in his words and chided him softly. Then I'll take that as a yes. Let's go, Lucas said, already starting to pack her canvas bag for her. While he was usually willing to go along with whatever Lily wanted, even when she was too shy to say no, this was different. The girl was as stubborn as a mule. If he didn't drag her, she'd work herself into the ground. I'll get it, Lily said, finally surrendering. She obediently packed her books from the stone table into her bag. Next time, she thought to herself, I can't fall asleep in front of him. Although, I didn't mean to fall asleep this time, either. I nod off so fast. Lucas watched her carefully arrange her books, a satisfied smile on his face. He pulled out his phone and shot a text to Jason, telling him to scout out the computer science department for potential recruits. With Ryan's connections in the student union, it should be easy enough. When he looked up, he saw Lily, bag in hand, trying to sneak out of the gazebo. What are you doing? Lucas asked, half amused, half exasperated. Lily froze at the sound of his voice and slowly turned around. I'm going home. Nice try. You really think you could just sneak off? What do you take me for? Lucas walked over and poked her on the forehead. Fine, as long as you actually go to sleep. He glanced at his watch. It was already 3:20 p.m. On second thought, I've changed my mind. You're coming with me. He took her bag and slung it over his own shoulder. He couldn't trust her to go home and rest. By the time you get home, it'll be after 4. You won't have much time to sleep before you have to come back over. And I bet you won't even sleep. You'll probably start prepping for Emma's lesson behind my back. Lily looked down, saying nothing. He'd read her like a book. She had no choice but to follow him. Isn't it normal for two really good friends to go to each other's houses for a nap? I've slept at Jason's place tons of times, Lucas argued as they walked. But inwardly he scoffed. Friends, my ass. Just keep swimming in the warm water, you clueless little frog. And so, the innocent young maiden was lured back to Lucas's home. Are you sure your aunt and uncle aren't home? Lily asked quietly at the door, still hesitant to go in. She knew she couldn't escape now, but she prayed they wouldn't actually be seen. She'd never be able to explain it. She had spent the entire walk oversteeling herself, and only relaxed a little after Lucas showed her his chat with Emma, where Emma had told her to use her room. She and Emma had gotten much closer lately. Well, mostly it was Emma constantly messaging her. Lucas nodded and slowly opened the door. Relax. I saw my mom's Facebook post. They're at the movies having a date night. They'll probably eat out too. After opening the door, Lucas cautiously peeked inside. He was a little afraid of his mom misunderstanding, especially since she liked Lily so much. He could genuinely see himself getting hung up and beaten for this. As expected, the house was quiet. The afternoon sun streamed in from the balcony, casting a warm glow on the spotless floor. Lucas pulled a pair of slippers from his shoe cabinet, ones his mom had bought specifically for Lily, and bent down to offer them to her. My mom bought these just for you. You can wear them when you come for tutoring, he said. They're only for you. He felt like he'd inherited his kind-hearted nature from his mom, just with a little less of the violence. Lucas put a kettle on to boil on the coffee table, then led Lily to Emma's room. You're not nervous about sleeping in a girl's room, are you? He asked with a small smile. Lily nodded slightly, but when she looked up at him again, she saw a look of pure shock on his face. Huh? Why won't it open? He quickly sent another message to Emma. Lucas, your room won't open. You locked it. Emma, did I? I locked it. OMG. The key's in my bag. Well, nothing to be done about it now. Just have Lily sis use your room. You're already there, so just make do. My bad. This is so awkward. Woman shrugging. Lucas stared at the message and fell into a deep contemplation. There was no way Emma would forget whether she'd locked her door. She'd replied instantly. There was no time to search her bag for a key. From now on, he decided whatever she wants, I'm buying it for her. I'm her brother, after all. He showed the phone to Lily. Looks like you'll have to sleep in my room, he said softly. Lily suddenly felt like she had walked straight into a trap, but she couldn't quite put her finger on why. She could only lower her head and walk toward Lucas's room. She had been here for tutoring so many times, but she had never once stepped inside his room. Alongside her regret and nervousness, there was a tiny spark of anticipation. She swore it was only a tiny spark, not even a full spark. Lucas, for his part, didn't seem nervous at all. He opened the door and stepped aside to let her in first. When she walked in, the scene was completely different from what she had imagined. Lucas's bedroom was far tidier than she'd expected. A light gray comforter was neatly spread across the bed. A desk with a computer sat by the bed, and the entire opposite wall was lined with bookshelves filled with all sorts of books. Makes Emma's room look like a pigsty, doesn't it? Just as she was taking it all in, Lucas came to stand beside her, a mischievous grin on his face. He was about to continue bragging when his smile froze. From the entryway, they heard the sound of a key in the lock. Oh crap. For a split second, Lucas's heart genuinely stopped. Lily froze beside him. They hadn't been caught yet, but she already wanted to leave the planet. The lock clicked, and the front door slowly swung open. While Lucas was frantically trying to come up with a plan, Lily gently tugged on his sleeve. He turned to see her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Should I hide? She whispered pitifully. Lucas nearly choked on his own spit. How did her brain completely shut down when she got nervous? Lily looked at him anxiously, her heart pounding. If his mom saw her here, she would rather die. Even though Lucas had practically forced her to come, from his mom's perspective, it would look like she was the one trying to sneak in and steal her son. It's fine, don't panic, Lucas said, trying to calm her down, and himself. It's not like we were doing anything wrong in here. Seeing her panic had almost made him panic, too. You stay in here for now. I'll go see what's going on. He slowly opened the door and walked into the living room, trying to act casual. The kettle he'd put on just then started to whistle, giving him the perfect excuse for being there. He slowly poured some hot water into a mug and looked up toward the entryway. Just as his mother, Emily, was about to bend down and change her shoes, Lucas called out, "Mom, what are you doing back?" The sudden voice made her jump. Forgetting her shoes, she marched over to him. So, not only do you never come home from campus, now you're sneaking back behind my back? If you really don't want to see me, we could just live separately. She grabbed his ear, trying to suppress a smile. And what are you doing back? Anyone would think you live here. I'm sorry. Lucas yelped, rubbing his ear. I just saw your Facebook post, and then you showed up out of nowhere. I was worried you two had a fight. He looked at her with utter sincerity, his face calm, but his heart racing. Since he hadn't brought Lily out immediately, there was no turning back now. He couldn't let his mom find out there was a girl hiding in his room. Emily let go of his ear and walked triumphantly toward her bedroom. Well, at least you have some conscience left. Don't worry, we didn't fight. I spilled my bubble tea on my clothes at the movies, so I came back to change. Lucas took a sip of his hot water. He only drank hot water instead of Coke when his stomach hurt. You're a grown woman, still drinking bubble tea, he grumbled. Emily stopped, turning to him with a gentle, almost terrifying smile. Lucas, honey, how old is your mother? Lucas's hand trembled, nearly sloshing hot water onto himself. You're 18, Mom. Emily nodded, completely satisfied. Next time you run your mouth, I'll kill you, she said sweetly, before shutting her bedroom door with a loud bang. Lucas let out a quiet breath of relief. Even though he hadn't done anything wrong, the adrenaline was intense. A couple of minutes later, Emily emerged in a new dress, looking incredibly youthful. When she went shopping with Emma, people often thought she was Emma's aunt, because she had never really had a struggle, and her relationship with Robert had always been strong. She looked like she hadn't aged a day, even with a 21-year-old son. They were always taking trips, just the two of them. This was what love looked like to Lucas. Hardship seemed to be the only nutrient for wrinkles. The more you suffered, the faster time etched itself onto your face. Lily's mother was a prime example. You're not coming back for dinner? Lucas asked. Just order something for yourself. Get whatever you want, don't starve, Emily said as she changed her shoes, not seeing anything wrong with her words. Can I come with you guys? Emily rejected him without a second thought. Go find a girlfriend to eat with. Why would you crash our date night? Keep pushing me, and I'll give you a grandchild. Go for it, she said, opening the door. Just don't come crying to me when her parents break your legs. She closed the door behind her. Lucas let out a long, slow breath. His mom hadn't noticed anything. She hadn't even seen Lily's shoes. A close call. But still, why does that hurt a little? He thought. It seemed like both he and his sister were adopted. His parents were true saints, taking in two strays. He got up and walked toward his bedroom. As he opened the door, he saw Lily sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at him timidly. When he walked in, she scooted a little further away. Lucas found it odd. He had no idea she had overheard him yell, I'll give you a grandchild. He didn't dwell on it. He walked over, closed the curtains, and set the AC to a comfortable temperature. Then he glanced at the time, picked up his laptop bag, and turned to leave. I'm going to work in the living room. You get some sleep. Twist this lock, and the door won't open from the outside. Lily watched him, noticing he was holding his stomach. Are you not feeling well? She asked softly. It's nothing, Lucas said dismissively. Just a bit of a stomachache. I'll eat some crackers, it'll pass. He was about to close the door behind him when he felt a strange resistance. He let go of the handle, and the door was gently pulled open by the girl. She rested her forehead against the doorframe, taking several deep breaths before finally speaking. What? What do you want to eat? Her voice was barely a whisper. I'll make it for you. Lucas didn't answer. He just reached up and pinched his own cheek hard. What kind of position did I fall asleep in to be having a dream like this? After he came back to his senses, he forced a smile down and said softly, You need to sleep? I've been through this before. A few snacks and I'll be fine. But the girl was stubborn again. She pouted almost imperceptibly and looked up at him. How about I make you some soup? It'll be quick. I'll go to sleep right after, I promise. Lucas felt a wave of helplessness. How did she manage to make a request like this sound like she was the one asking for a favor? Please? Or you can tell me what you want to eat, and I'll make it. As long as you eat something. Seeing him hesitate, she pleaded again, her voice soft and gentle, wrapping around him and refusing to fade. Lucas felt himself giving in. 15 minutes, max, he finally conceded. But you have to promise me you'll go straight to sleep afterward. Okay, Lily said, a small smile finally gracing her lips. She was genuinely happy. With Lucas's encouragement, her smiles were getting better and better. Her smile was like a blooming flower, and her clear, bright eyes seemed to hold all the stars in the sky. Before Lucas could think of what to say, he saw her pull a hair tie from her wrist and gather her hair into a ponytail. Then she turned and walked toward the kitchen. He felt his heartbeat speed up and sighed to himself. All right, you win today. Lucas wasn't about to let a goofball get his heart racing without getting some payback. He watched her ponytail sway as she walked and quietly followed her. Lily stopped in front of the refrigerator, her hand hovering over the handle. She paused, then turned to look at him. "Is it okay if I open it?" she asked quietly. It felt strange. When she cooked for him at her own house, she felt no pressure at all. But here, in his house, she was suddenly hesitant to touch anything. Lucas found it amusing. "You could carry the whole fridge out of here, and I wouldn't mind." Lily pursed her lips and said nothing more. She opened the refrigerator to see what she could use to make him something. "What do you feel like eating?" she asked after a moment. "Plain toast is fine. Just make it quick," Lucas said, leaning against the wall, his expression serious. "Otherwise, I'll die of guilt." The only reasons he wasn't forcefully refusing her offer were that 1. The goofball was incredibly persistent, and 2. Her cooking was amazing. It would be a lie to say he wasn't craving it. The girl nodded and took out a loaf of bread and some cheese. She remembered his tastes perfectly. With what was in the fridge, a grilled cheese and tomato soup was the dish he liked most. At least, that's what she'd gathered from their conversations. Seeing this, Lucas didn't just stand around. He walked into the kitchen and started filling a pot with water for the soup. He didn't want her to struggle with it. Lily, despite her good figure, was still delicate. She looked like she had no strength at all, the kind you could push over with one finger. He was lost in thought until he saw water spilling over the edge of the pot. He quickly turned off the tap and poured some out. "You don't need that much water," Lily chided gently, as if even that was a waste. "I know," Lucas said, putting the pot on the stove. "I got distracted." "Are you worried about something?" Lily asked, looking at him with concern. Her question made Lucas feel a little ashamed. "Nah," he deflected. "I was just trying to figure out how to fatten you up. Look how skinny you are." "Oh," Lily replied softly, not thinking much of it. Lucas was always more concerned about her weight than she was. She was almost used to it by now. "You should go lie down," she urged, gathering the courage to gently poke him. He was always poking her face, after all. As she did, she noticed his stomach felt different. She blinked and poked her own stomach for comparison. "What's wrong?" Lucas asked, curious. Lily looked down, embarrassed. "Your stomach is a little harder than mine." Lucas couldn't help but smile. He lifted his t-shirt, revealing a set of lean, defined abs. For his slimmer build, it was the perfect level of definition. "Well, that's normal, isn't it? I do have abs, you know." Lily's eyes widened, and she immediately spun around, feeling both mortified and annoyed that she had turned away so quickly. "When will I ever get a chance like that again? I should have looked a little longer." The thought made her face burn, and she silently scolded herself. Lucas laughed and patted his stomach a couple of times. He didn't leave, instead taking a seat nearby to watch her. "By the way, you still owe me," he reminded her. "Come on, let me poke your stomach back." Lily shook her head like a bobblehead. "No way. Lily Thompson, you can't just take without giving back. That's very rude. You poke my face all the time." "Face is face, stomach is stomach," Lucas said dismissively. "I'm not stopping you from poking my face. Come on, you can poke me as many times as you want." Lily turned her back to him and focused on making the food, ignoring him completely. If she kept talking, she knew she'd fall into another one of his traps. Her cheeks still felt hot. She hated how easily she blushed. Didn't it just make her seem like an easy target? Steam rose from the pot, warming her face and making her take a step back. Then, as if afraid of bumping into something, she froze and looked around anxiously to make sure she hadn't broken anything. It was only then that she remembered this was Lucas's spacious kitchen. She didn't have to be so careful, and she certainly didn't have to stand so close to the hot stove. They fell into a comfortable silence. For some reason, watching the girl busy herself in the kitchen filled Lucas with a warm, comforting feeling. It was an indescribable mix of gratitude and contentment. The last time he'd seen her like this, at her own house, he'd felt a sudden, powerful urge to marry her. It wasn't just about her cooking. It was about this feeling. With her personality, she would definitely insist on handling all the housework herself. He pictured coming home from work every day, going grocery shopping with her, watching her carefully select vegetables while he stood by, yawning and holding the bags. While she cooked, he would help out with small things, then act like a scoundrel and get chased out of the kitchen, flustered and blushing. The thought of being able to tease her every day made him smile. She would never let him tire himself out with chores, so he would have to take on every other burden for her. A girl like this, if he could really marry her, he would have to cherish her completely. "Lily," Lucas called out softly, breaking from his fantasy. Lily turned around, her ponytail swinging behind her. "What is it?" "You're beautiful from behind," Lucas said seriously. The kind of beautiful you could look at for a lifetime and never get tired of. The girl froze, then quickly turned back around, mumbling, "Pervert." Though she said it, she couldn't help but feel a little happy inside. When other guys called her pretty, it scared her. She met too many shady people while working part-time jobs alone. But when Lucas said it, it just made her heart flutter. She watched the grilled cheese brown in the pan, the corners of her mouth turning up again. Even though he'd been scolded, Lucas just smiled. He loved these moments. The only sound in the kitchen was the gentle sizzle from the pan as they stood there, one in front of the other, both smiling to themselves. After a moment, Lucas realized this was the first time Lily had ever called him that. "You're learning to smile so fast, and now you're already calling me a pervert," he mused. "What am I going to do when you finally learn to get angry at me?" "I won't," the girl answered immediately. This time, she didn't turn around. She was too shy, but she felt it was important to reassure him. This was the only way she could find the courage to say it. Lily turned the heat down on the stove, lowering the noise. With her head bowed low, she summoned all her strength and managed to squeeze out 4 small words. "I couldn't bear to." "Really?" Lucas asked, feeling giddy. The girl gave a barely perceptible nod and continued to focus on her cooking. Lucas stretched and sat down at the coffee table to continue his research. The contestants were all university students, so if they put in a serious effort, they had a good chance of placing. He wasn't too stressed about it. If it worked, it worked. If not, it was still an experience. Lily cooked in the kitchen while Lucas sat in the living room, dutifully sipping hot water and taking notes. About 10 minutes later, Lily brought a bowl of tomato soup and a plate with a grilled cheese sandwich to him. "Go get some sleep," Lucas urged gently. Lily nodded, but first, she leaned over his shoulder, peering at the screen full of things she didn't understand. When Lucas was joking around, he was one person, but when he was focused on his work, he had an intensity that made it hard for her to look away. "Why did you decide to do this?" she asked quietly. She didn't know much about games. As for the games she played, did that little jumpy thing on WhatsApp count? She was pretty good at that. "For you, of course." "You're just trying to trick me," Lily said, giving up on the questions. She stood up and walked toward his bedroom. She had to keep her promise to sleep, or who knew how he would tease her. She pulled the tie from her hair, and a cascade of dark, silky hair tumbled down, accentuating her slender waist. Lucas watched her go and shrugged helplessly. No one believed the truth these days. The world was a cynical place. While he had always worked to improve himself for his own sake, the sudden decision to start a business really was for Lily. On a small scale, if he got lucky and it took off, he could help her with her immediate financial problems. It would be his money to spend however he wanted. On a larger scale, if they ended up together, he could give her a better life. It was just a shame this particular frog had to be boiled slowly. It was unrealistic to expect a goofball who had just recently learned to smile to completely open her heart. "All I need to do is be there for her while she gets better, just like how she pulled me out of the mud," Lucas thought to himself. His gaze drifted to the closed door of his bedroom. The thought of her lying on his bed, of her cute and peaceful sleeping face, made him swallow hard. A girl was sleeping in his room. The feeling was surprisingly novel. He shook his head and got back to work. 2 hours flew by. It was now after 6 in the evening. The patches of light filtering through the blinds had shifted. The days were long now. If you didn't look at the time, you'd never guess it was so late. Lucas rubbed his tired eyes, yawned, and walked to his bedroom door. He knocked lightly twice. "Time to wake up. I'm taking you out to eat." He knocked again. "If you sleep any longer, you'll turn into a zombie." There was no response. "She's really out cold," he thought. This goofball must have been exhausted. He sighed and tried the handle, checking if she had locked it. She hadn't. The door swung open, and he saw her lying on her side near the edge of the bed, looking impossibly sweet. The goofball was even too shy to sleep in the middle. Her t-shirt had ridden up slightly, revealing a sliver of pale, smooth skin along her delicate waist. Even the waists of pretty girls were sexy. Lucas silently chanted, "I am a gentleman," several times before slowly approaching the bed and gently shaking her awake. "Wake up. My mom's back." The shaking had already started to rouse her, but those words made Lily bolt upright. Lucas laughed and poked her on the forehead. "Just kidding. It's your fault for being such a deep sleeper." The girl pouted, looking like she wanted to bite him again. He was the worst. It was then that she noticed her disheveled clothes and the exposed bit of her stomach. She blinked, looked down at herself, then back up at Lucas, who was finding it incredibly difficult to look away. With a gasp, she dove under the covers, wanting to disappear from the face of the earth. Then she remembered the comforter belonged to Lucas, and her will to live evaporated. "I'm so tired. Just let the world end." Seeing her adorable reaction, Lucas couldn't help but smile. All right, get up. I'm taking you out to eat. Why are we eating out? Lily's head popped out from under the covers. Lucas looked at her, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. It's date night, isn't it? As for what Emma would do for dinner when she got home, Lucas hadn't considered it. She was a big kid now. She could fend for herself. Lily didn't quite understand. Friends don't go out to eat on date night. Sure they do. Really good friends do, Lucas said earnestly. Jason and I went out together last year. The girl bought his lie. She said, oh, then finished arranging her clothes under the covers before slowly emerging. I'll go, but on one condition, Lily said timidly. Lucas was intrigued. What condition? Let me pay. I told you I wanted to treat you to a meal. She looked down, twisting her fingers together. Look at you, making demands now. Fine, I accept. Go get ready. Okay. Lucas went back to the living room to figure out where to take her, waiting for her to finish washing up. Just as he was pondering the pros and cons of pixel art, the front door once again made that heart-stopping sound. Oh crap, you have to be kidding me. Lucas shot up and stared at the entryway, ready to see who it was. If it was Emma, it was fine. If it was his parents, he'd have to start planning his next life. A moment later, a girl with a high ponytail bounced in, slinging her backpack several feet across the floor. Lucas let out a breath and sank back on the sofa. You're like a little kid, he grumbled. Emma grinned at him, plopped down on the sofa beside him, and wrapped her arms around his. Bro, she said sweetly, I want to go to a concert this summer. So go, but I don't have any money. Funny, neither do I. No, you have to have money, or else I'll tell Mom and Dad that Lily's sis slept over. Emma's smile was still angelic. And I'll tell Lily's sis that you once accidentally ate one of my magic grow capsules because you thought it was a new kind of gummy. Shut up, Lucas groaned. If you can get tickets, I'll go with you, okay? The siblings were both old-school fans of the National. Speaking of, where are Mom and Dad? Emma asked. Out for date night. Emma just sighed. She was used to it. So what are we eating? Lucas shook his head. You should be thinking about what you're eating. I'm taking your Miss Thompson out. After a few seconds of silence, Emma shot up and darted around the house, searching for Lily. The moment she saw her, she threw her arms around her. Lily, sis, I want to come too. She knew begging her brother was useless. Even if he agreed, he'd get his revenge later. Her only hope was her super understanding, future sister-in-law. Meanwhile, outside the apartment door, Emily and Robert had returned. You're a grown woman. Why are you so dramatic? Robert said, there's no way Lucas would bring a girl home. He can fool anyone, but he can't fool his own mother, Emily said proudly. Now listen, we're just here for the gossip. Act natural, don't scare the kids. She was getting impatient. This is all your fault. You took forever finding the car in the parking garage. Emma has probably eaten all the good gossip by now. She slapped Robert's arm. You don't know anything, and I didn't tell you anything, got it? Got it, Robert said, nodding as he unlocked the door. When he stepped inside, they found the apartment completely empty. The evidence by the shoe cabinet was long gone. Where are they? Where's my son? Where's my daughter? And where is my giant, prospective daughter-in-law? Of course, Lucas had no idea he'd narrowly escaped his mother's ambush. He was cruising along comfortably. He had intended for Lily to sit in the passenger seat, but before he could say anything, Emma had dragged her into the back. Lucas couldn't very well start a fight with his sister right there, so he mentally filed the grievance away for later. He'd find a way to make his mom buy her more practice tests. A high schooler shouldn't have this much free time. You two figure out what you want to eat, Lucas called back. Or, I'm just taking you for ramen. Emma felt a prickle of annoyance. You're only saying that because I'm here, aren't you? Yep, Lucas said, not bothering to hide it. She had zero self-awareness as a third wheel. She deserved the grief she was getting. Lily listened to the siblings bicker and smiled to herself. What do you want to eat? She asked Emma. We're fine with anything. Thanks, Lily, sis, but I'm already full, Emma said after a beat. What's going on? She thought. How did they become a we? What happened when I wasn't around? Oh, did you eat before you came home? Lily asked, surprised. She felt like all the time she'd spent trying to think of what the siblings liked to eat was wasted. She had wanted to treat them properly. She'd been earning a lot from her part-time jobs lately. No, I mean I'm full from all your P3.I, Emma said, clinging to Lily's arm like a koala. She felt like her potential future sister-in-law was sometimes so adorably clueless. Lily's face flushed, and she turned away. Don't be ridiculous, she chided gently. Just tell us what you want to eat. Lucas interrupted, breaking up the conversation. He was trying to slowly win Lily over. His idiot sister's meddling wasn't helping. For a girl as sensitive and insecure as Lily, being too aggressive would only backfire. The more she tried to confront her feelings, the more she might retreat. If she did start to fall for him, she might suppress it out of fear of dragging him into her troubled life. The pressure on her was still immense. She hadn't lived a single day for herself. "Let's get Korean barbecue," Emma suggested. "You don't get a vote," Lucas shot back mercilessly, watching Lily's reaction in the rearview mirror. Lily let Emma cling to her. "Let's listen to Emma," she said softly. "I'm okay with anything." She didn't mind. She didn't have many friends, and she felt happy that someone wanted to be this close to her. Ever since meeting Lucas, every day had felt like a dream, and she was terrified of waking up. If she woke up and found it was all a dream, she knew she would cry for a very long time. The girl stared out the window at the passing scenery, her thoughts drifting. Every now and then, her gaze would return to Lucas's profile. It was the only thing that seemed to ground her. Other than her mother, this handsome, gentle boy had become her entire world, her entire life. As she watched him, a wave of anguish suddenly washed over her, making it hard to breathe. Lately, she was finding it harder and harder to suppress her feelings. But they were a luxury she couldn't afford right now. Lucas's image blurred in her eyes. She bit her lip hard, her expression a mix of sorrow and frustration. She was so afraid that by the time she was free of her burdens, she would have already missed her chance with him. Why? Why did I have to meet you when I'm at my most useless? "Lily sis, what's wrong? Did my brother do something to you?" Emma turned and saw Lily's tear-filled eyes. "Bro," she yelled, slapping the back of the driver's seat. "Lily sis is the best person ever, and you're making her cry? Are you even human?" Lucas frowned, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. If it weren't a bad spot to pull over, he would have stopped the car to see what was wrong. "Do you have that little faith in me?" he asked, exasperated. He racked his brain, but couldn't think of anything he'd done wrong. He was starting to mentally list every bad thing he'd ever done in his entire life. "Who else could it be?" "Me?" Emma demanded. "Lily sis, don't be scared. We won't bow down to evil." She looked into Lily's eyes. "I'll have my parents ground him for life, and I'll send you a video." "He didn't do anything," Lily said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Even in her daze, she could tell Emma was just trying to make her laugh. A small smile touched her lips. "I don't know what's wrong with me. Why am I thinking about all this now? So embarrassing." Emma looked thoughtful. "Maybe you just needed a good cry. Sometimes I look for a really sad book or movie just to make myself cry it out. Watching The Notebook absolutely destroyed me. Have you seen it?" Lily shook her head, her eyes still red. She'd never had time for things like that, and when people around her talked about them, she never understood the references. It was one of the reasons she'd always had trouble fitting in. The whole movie is just pure emotional torture. "Okay, so let me tell you about it." Lucas listened to his sister recount the plot of a story seemingly designed purely to inflict pain on its audience as he drove to their destination. "Are you okay?" Lucas asked softly as he opened the car door for Lily. He still couldn't figure out what had made her so sad. Why are girls so hard to read? He wondered. He used to be able to understand this goofball. Emma had already gotten out on the other side, knowing this kind of special treatment was reserved for Lily. "I'm fine," Lily said, not quite meeting his eyes as she stepped out of the car. She tried to hurry past him, but he gently caught her arm. This time, he wasn't thinking about the soft feel of her skin. He was just focused on her. The girl froze, then slowly turned to face him. Her heart ached. She was afraid he would press her for an answer, and she wouldn't be able to tell him, but she also didn't want to lie to him. It would kill her. Thankfully, Lucas seemed to sense her reluctance. "Then just smile for me," he said instead. "If you can smile, I'll believe you're not sad, and I'll let it go." Lily looked up at him and, trying to hold back her shyness, puffed out her cheeks in a cute pose. A genuine smile was impossible right now, so she had to try to bluff her way through. Lucas poked her cheek with his finger, making her face deflate. Then, he led her into the restaurant. He didn't let go of her arm, not even in front of Emma. As they walked through the restaurant, Lily kept her head down, too shy to look up. Watching them, Emma wished, for a moment, that she was a boy. If she were ever reincarnated as a guy, the first thing she'd do is win over her best friend, so she didn't end up with someone else. She followed behind them, lost in her fantasy. "I shouldn't have come. This is torture. I'm so full of salt, I could preserve meat." They found an empty table, and Emma sat down next to Lily, giving her brother a strange look. Lily, meanwhile, kept her head down, her hand gently covering the spot on her arm where Lucas had held her. She could still feel the warmth, as if his touch had left a permanent mark. Every time he touched her, it felt like flowers were about to bloom on her skin. On this not-so-special day that had somehow been given special meaning, the restaurant was filled with couples. The air hummed with their cheerful chatter and the sizzle of grilling meat, mixed with the unavoidable smell of hot oil. After a bit of small talk, Emma and Lily started discussing what to order. Lucas rested his chin in his hand, watching Lily's focused expression, feeling increasingly puzzled. Seeing her on the verge of tears in the car had genuinely scared him. But he had to admit, she was incredibly quick at composing herself. She was already back to normal, a skill born from years of practice, he supposed. If it had been Emma, she would have moped for at least another hour. What do you want to eat? Lily asked, looking up at him. Lucas's lips curved into a smile. Ms. Thompson is so considerate, he said lightly. I'm good with whatever. I'll just eat what you guys are having. Bro, do you have some kind of weird fetish? Emma asked blankly. How can you slander me like that? Lily nodded in agreement with Emma. He made me call him Mr. Carter before, too. You, Emma said, looking at him with disgust. Seeing the two girls smiling, Lucas found that he didn't really mind being the butt of the joke. This goofball was a little more lively than when they first met. He never would have imagined that this girl would walk into his life and change him so much. Lucas looked at Emma and Lily sitting so closely together and sighed. Man, if only we could switch places. I'd love to have a beautiful and gentle tutor, too. Emma shot him a look. Bro, you should probably just stick to watching those kinds of movies. Don't take them so seriously. Lucas blinked at her innocently. What are you talking about? I don't understand. He then turned to a stunned Lily and asked with a straight face, Did you understand? I know you weren't thinking anything good. Lily replied, just as seriously. She hadn't actually understood, but after spending so much time with him, she could read his expressions, at least when he wasn't trying to hide anything. Lucas realized his image in Lily's eyes might be getting a little skewed. He shrugged and dropped the subject. Besides, what guy hadn't fantasized about having a beautiful tutor? What was the big deal? He was just being honest. Still, the thought of the goofball as easy to tease as Lily being his tutor. Lucas shook his head, not daring to let the fantasy continue. Once the food arrived, Lucas became the designated griller for the two girls. While it wasn't complicated, there was a difference between knowing how to cook the meat and just throwing it on the grill. This was Lily's first time in a place like this, but because she was with Lucas and Emma, she knew no one would laugh at her for not knowing what to do, and she felt completely at ease. Lucas would frequently wrap a piece of grilled meat in lettuce and hand it to her. That's so much trouble, Emma said sourly, popping a piece of meat in her mouth before stuffing a large piece of lettuce in after it. Lucas ignored her. Even though Lily was so shy she could barely speak, he continued to feed her. It's called having a sense of occasion. What would you know about it? It all ends up as lettuce and meat in your stomach, right? What's the difference if you eat them together or separately? There is a difference, Lucas said, a twinkle in his eye. Feeding someone like this shows you care. But you wouldn't understand, since no one's feeding you. Emma was furious. She shook Lily's arm. Lily, sis. You feed me, she whined. Okay, Lily said. She mimicked what Lucas had done, preparing a lettuce wrap and feeding it to Emma like she was a child. Lucas saw the triumphant look in his sister's eyes and huffed. If you feed her, you have to feed me too. The back and forth was making Lily's head spin, but she immediately agreed. Okay, a little while later, Emma leaned close to Lily's ear. So, what's the deal with you and my brother? She whispered. Lily immediately tensed up. Don't say things like that. We're just really good friends, Lucas explained. The statement nearly fried Emma's brain. Good friends? Your version of good friends involves holding her arm all the way into the restaurant? She shot her brother a withering glare that clearly said, You're so pathetic. If you won't make a move, I will. Lucas ignored her, giving her a helpless look in return. Half an hour later, Lucas checked the time and stood up. Let's go. Time for class, Emma. Emma didn't move. She looked pleadingly at Lily. Lily, sis, you're the best. Can we take a break today? Please. Lily looked troubled. You seem to say that every time we have a lesson. Emma slumped onto the table, completely drained of energy. My future sister-in-law won't let me skip class. -1 point. What was even happening? They were already speaking in perfect harmony. Did they have no mercy for single people? They didn't linger outside, heading straight home. The moment Lucas opened the door, he saw his parents sitting in the living room. Emily was sitting ramrod straight, an incredibly serious expression on her face, like she was about to preside over an inquisition. The second she saw Lily, however, her face instantly broke into a wide smile. The change was faster than flipping a page. Lily, you're here. She pulled Lily over to sit beside her. Are you thirsty? Want some fruit? I'll get it for you. No, I'm fine. Thank you, Lily said, her face instantly turning red at the memory of sleeping in their son's bedroom for hours that afternoon. I just ate. She felt like Emily was so good to her, and she had repaid that kindness by sleeping in her son's room. It felt wrong, like she'd done something shameful. They all chatted for a bit before Emma was shooed off to her room for her lesson. I'm going to take a nap. I've been so tired lately, Lucas mumbled, slowly trying to inch his way toward his bedroom. He just turned around when Emily's voice stopped him in his tracks. It was a gentle sound, but it sent a shiver down his spine and made goosebumps pop up all over his arms. My dear son, she said sweetly, is there anything you'd like to tell your kind, understanding mother? Experience proves that when faced with extreme danger, your life really does flash before your eyes. Lucas Carter was seeing it now. Before a cold bead of sweat could even hit the floor, an emergency exit strategy formed in his mind. I'm just going to go change my clothes. Before Emily could call out to him again, he bolted back into his room. Standing there for an interrogation would have been a death sentence. A few moments to think up a plausible lie might just be his only chance of survival. He leaned against the closed door, his mind racing. Why didn't Mom just ask me about it when she saw it? She's a grown woman. Why does she have to be so dramatic? In the living room, a middle-aged couple sat close together on the sofa, pondering the exact same mystery. Robert Carter glanced at the closed door to Lucas's room and asked in a low voice, "The girl who came over this afternoon couldn't have been Lily, could it?" The timing made sense. The two of them could have hung out at the house until Emma got home from school, and then all gone out for dinner together. Emily didn't answer, lost in thought. Lucas had been so good at distracting her earlier that while she'd noticed the unfamiliar shoes, she hadn't gotten a good look at the style. Besides, knowing Lily's personality, she would never be bold enough to just follow Lucas home. Which meant the girl who came over this afternoon wasn't Lily Thompson. Her hands balled into fists. She stopped thinking and started silently scanning the room for a suitable weapon. "What are you doing?" Robert asked, watching her with alarm. Emily answered seriously, "I have to teach him a lesson. He's not even dating, and he's already bringing girls home. He definitely did it because he knew we wouldn't be here. Who knows what kind of trouble that boy got into?" She couldn't possibly imagine that Lily was completely devoted to her son. In her mind, Lucas had spent the afternoon with some other girl entirely. "And what about your future daughter-in-law?" Robert asked curiously. As a department head at the university, he tended to think things through more completely, less impulsively. Emily didn't slow down. What if he's two-timing them? Bringing one girl over in the afternoon, then taking Lily out to dinner at night. Doesn't he deserve a good thrashing for that? "You don't have any proof," Robert said, exasperated but still gentle. "Besides, Lucas is your son. Do you really think he's the type to be two-timing anyone?" The urge for violence finally subsided a little. She sat back down on the sofa, silently cursing her husband for being so reasonable. She hadn't really thought it through that far. She just wanted an excuse to give Lucas a little dose of motherly care. "You had to go. It makes so much sense. How am I supposed to justify hitting him now?" Seeing that his wife had calmed down, Robert dared to continue. "Just let the kids figure things out themselves. You worry this much about Lucas, a boy. What are you going to do when Emma gets older? Are you even going to survive?" He went on, "Let's just pretend we don't know anything. When he's ready, he'll bring a daughter-in-law home to us. If you interfere too much, it could backfire. Remember your colleague's son? They're already married. You don't want to have regrets." "You're right," Emily conceded. Robert winced in pain. "Then why are you still pinching me?" Just then, the door creaked open. Lucas, his alibi prepared, stepped out of his bedroom. "Mom has no proof. I can get beaten half to death, but I can't crack. Just say she saw wrong. If I don't admit it, I get beaten half to death. If I admit it, I'm dead." The choice is obvious. Seeing that his parents weren't speaking, he decided to play dumb, plopping down on the sofa casually. He picked up Robert's mug, took a sip of tea, and said calmly, "I'm thinking of starting a studio with a friend." They both froze. Emily was the first to ask, "What kind of studio?" Lucas thought, perfect or distracted. He had no idea that his parents were also playing the long game with him. This family had more schemes than a spy novel. But now that the moment was here, Lucas felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. This was a major life decision, after all. He knew it was an impulsive choice, and he wouldn't have been surprised if his parents had reacted as explosively as Jason's. "Game development," he said seriously. "With Jason. I'm leading it." Robert nodded. "If you've thought it through, then give it a shot. Every year, college students start businesses. Some shoot for the stars, others end up deep in debt. As long as you understand the risks, you can do what you want." Lucas just stared, dumbfounded. This was not the reaction he'd prepared for. He said, in disbelief, "Wait, why are you so calm about this? Aren't you supposed to say something like, 'If you dare mess around, I'll break your legs'?" He turned to Emily. "Mom, aren't you supposed to be hitting me with something right now?" Only then did he see her subtly hide a rolled-up magazine behind her back. He immediately shut his mouth. After a moment of silence, Robert spoke, his voice full of meaning. Because I don't want you to get older, lose your drive, and spend your life wondering what might have been if we hadn't stopped you. Robert reached out and patted Lucas's back. Go for it while you're young. Your mother and I worked this hard so that you and Emma would have the chance to chase your dreams. He continued, if you're an eagle, we'll do our best to be the wind that helps you soar. If you're just a sparrow, we'll be the branch where you can rest from the storm. Be bold. If you fall, I'll be there to catch you. Your only job is to get back up. Lucas was speechless for a long time. He sniffled, then managed a smile. I'm really moved that you're so supportive, but why are you being so dramatic? I'm still taking the bar exam. If this doesn't work out, I'll just go get a real job. Then another thought struck him. Wait, did you have something you wanted to do that Grandpa and Grandma didn't approve of? Robert just shook his head with a small smile. He took Emily's hand, feeling the skin that was no longer as smooth as it once was. Of course not. It was because of your mother. If I chased something too demanding, I wouldn't have been able to take care of our family, and I wasn't willing to do that. So I chose a stable career. That way, I'd have more time for her. He looked at Emily, then back at Lucas. Success is just living life on your own terms. It doesn't have to mean a big career. For me, living a quiet life with the person I love most. That's a success, too. I'm out, Lucas said, standing up without another word and heading back to his room. He couldn't believe it. At dinner, he'd been laughing at Emma's lovesick pining, and now it was his turn to be the third wheel. The tables had turned way too fast. That's a success, too. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, murmuring his father's words. He closed his eyes, and an image of Lily appeared in his mind, waiting for him shyly in the rain. Then another, Lily in the dress he'd bought her, pressing her forehead against his chest and sobbing. Suddenly, he saw her again, mustering all her courage to lift her chin and give him a tentative smile. He shot up in bed. Oh man, something is seriously wrong with me. Lucas had drifted off at some point, exhausted from the past few days of research. Sometime later, the chime of a notification on his phone startled him awake. He glanced at the time, relieved to see it wasn't time to take Lily home yet. The message was from Jason. Jason, the bigger the fish, the smaller the fish. Want to know why, Lucas? Jason, the bigger the fish, the more bones. The more bones, the less meat. So, the bigger the fish, the smaller the fish. Lucas, F you. He couldn't be bothered with the idiot anymore. Staring out at the hazy night sky, he went back to the question that had been circling his mind before he fell asleep. When exactly did that dork make me fall for her completely? He still couldn't pinpoint it. There were too many moments, too many memories. Maybe the seed was planted that day. She waited for him for nearly 2 hours, half drenched in the rain. She had pulled him out of the mire of his own self-doubt, given him a new kind of confidence. That day, her actions told him someone is willing to wait for you, even in a downpour. And later, she showed him that there really was a girl out there whose eyes were only for him. All he had to do was turn around. Meanwhile, Jason, having received Lucas's insult, put down his phone with a sigh of boredom. He glanced at a nervous-looking Ryan Brooks and Bianca Cooper, who was sitting beside him. They were at a barbecue restaurant. As soon as Lucas had given the word, Jason had roped Ryan into helping him scout talent from the neighboring department. With Ryan spreading the word, the news of their hiring blitz quickly made the rounds in all the computer science major group chats, a reach most people didn't have. The price for this was playing wingman for Ryan tonight. Jason was so over it. Back in the student union, Ryan was always calling him or Lucas to back him up, as if just knowing them was something to brag about. Jason just never thought the habit would extend to dinner with a girl. It was obvious Ryan felt completely insecure around Bianca. This was a first step on the slippery slope to becoming a total simp. The more Jason watched, the more it annoyed him. From his expert experience as a former player, Bianca's interest in Ryan was lower than her interest in Lucas. For all he knew, she'd only gotten to know Ryan as a stepping stone to get closer to Lucas in the first place. After all, not many girls had pursued Lucas these past few years, solely because he'd been so publicly chasing Scarlett Montgomery, keeping a deliberate distance from everyone else. Otherwise, with Lucas's looks and personality, Jason didn't even want to imagine. Wow, you and Lucas are starting a business together? That's so cool. Bianca gushed. Jason just nodded slightly without speaking. He knew he didn't have to. Someone else was eager to fill the silence. He's always coming up with these random ideas, Ryan chimed in immediately. It's totally normal for him. Jason sighed internally. Ryan never seemed to realize he wasn't the center of the conversation. Ever since Bianca saw Jason's car, her attitude had become 10 times more enthusiastic. For a girl who had agreed to spend date night with him, that was a major red flag. Or maybe he just didn't want to see it. People always say girls are simple. If she likes you, She'll believe anything you say. She'll even lie to herself. Turns out it was the same for guys. As they talked, Bianca heard that someone like Jason, who drove such a nice car, still had to listen to Lucas on everything. Lucas is being a little intense, isn't he? She said suddenly. He won't delegate anything. You two are supposed to be building this together. That set Jason off. My boy is helping me achieve my dream. What more could I ask for? He put a heavy emphasis on the word my. He knew that Lucas, more than any dream of making games, was focused on making money. Ryan used the serving tongs to place a piece of grilled meat on Bianca's plate. Bianca's right, though. Lucas is capable, but it's better to talk things through. Jason froze for a second, then just smiled and raised his glass. He didn't say another word. Back at the Carter house, Lucas was on the sofa chatting with his parents, waiting for the time to take Lily home. Ever since she'd started tutoring Emma, this had become his daily routine. How much money do you need for this startup? Robert asked seriously. He was curious why Lucas had brought up the venture, but hadn't asked for a dime. Lucas looked up from his phone. I don't need you guys to chip in yet. I'm planning to apply for one of the university's incubator programs. It'll lower the risk a lot. Robert nodded slightly. That sounded just like his meticulous son. Just then, Emma emerged from her room and overheard the last two sentences. Bro, you're starting your own company? She asked, shocked. Lucas couldn't be bothered to explain the details. Yep, he said dismissively. Get ready to be a rich little heiress. Emma snorted, pointing at the laptop on the coffee table. If you succeed, I will, right here and now, eat this computer. She simply didn't believe her slacker brother had such ambitions. Their family had a long and proud tradition of being professional couch potatoes. When they were kids, their shared dream was to coast through life and die comfortably. You got guts, kid. It's a deal. It's a deal. And if I win, you have to give me your entire allowance for the year. Lily wanted to poke Emma in the shoulder and warn her, just to save her from having to literally eat a computer later. If there was one person left in the world who believed in Lucas, it was her. Lily, dear, if Lucas bullies you, you have to tell me, Emily said, taking Lily's hand and shooting a glare at her son. This kid has been slyly mischievous since he was little. I'm so afraid you'll get taken advantage of. Lucas was too stunned to even register Emma's mocking gaze. His jaw nearly hit the floor. Excuse me? How do I prove my mom is my mom? In the car, Lucas was on the phone with Jason while reaching over with his right hand to buckle Lily's seatbelt. Outside the window, two kids were arguing, and their squabble had captured his full attention. Seriously? People are already signing up. He wasn't sure whether to praise Jason for his efficiency or pity the current state of college students. They were practically fighting over a job that paid $600 a month. Tragic. Of course, it's not first come, first served. Are you an idiot? We have to look at their skills. Just because he signed up fast doesn't mean he can code fast. He thought for a moment, then added, and we don't want anyone too skilled either. Forget it. I'll explain later. He hung up and turned his head. Dork, I've been wrestling with this seatbelt for 5 minutes. Can you just buckle it yours? He stopped. Only then did he realize the back of his hand, still gripping the seatbelt, was pressed firmly against the soft curve of her chest. I swear that was an accident. Do you believe me? Lily didn't scream or accuse him of being a pervert. She couldn't even speak. It was only then that Lucas noticed her face was flushed, her lip caught between her teeth, her eyes welling up as she stared at him. Seeing her looking so vulnerable and wronged, Lucas felt an overwhelming urge to chop his own hand off. No condemnation from her was necessary. This was the kind of screw-up that would make him jolt awake in the middle of the night and slap himself. Seriously, it wasn't on purpose. Lucas said, scratching his cheek with his index finger. I was watching those kids argue. Lily managed a barely audible om-hom and quickly took a few deep breaths, feeling as if her heart was about to pound out her chest. Even if she believed it was an accident, the intimate boundary-crossing contact had been very, very real. Lucas let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, silently cursing the two little brats outside. Couldn't they have picked somewhere else to fight? Now his upstanding, gentlemanly image had a fresh stain on it. They clearly didn't have enough homework. It's funny, actually, Lucas said, starting the car and changing the subject. Back in school, I used to complain every day that the teachers were insane, giving us so much homework we never had time to hang out. He continued, now that I don't have to do it anymore, I feel like they should give these little monsters even more. Keep them off the streets and out of trouble. I guess that's what a double standard is. When I was a minor, I was terrified of parental controls on games. Now that I'm an adult, I'm the one laughing at the kids. Lily turned her head to look at him, her cheeks still a little pink. Were you a brat when you were little? She asked curiously. She couldn't quite picture a young Lucas. He was so good at teasing her now. He must have been a little troublemaker back then. If she'd met him as a child, he definitely would have bullied her mercilessly. The thought made her turn to the window and hide a small smile, which was quickly followed by a pang of sadness, as if she were grieving for her past self. Back then, Lily didn't even dare to cry in front of her mother, who had already lost everything. She would hide in a corner, silently wiping away tears, not daring to make a sound. "It's okay now, Lily," the girl thought, speaking to her younger self as painful memories surfaced. "Someone will be there for you. You're going to meet a boy who is as warm as the sun. And if you let yourself be a little selfish, you can even cry on his shoulder for a while. You're still a little useless, but if you work hard, anything can change. And one day, you'll be able to tell that boy out loud how much you like him. If he's still by my side then," Lily added silently in her heart. She never dared to hold too much hope for her own happiness. Shaking herself from her thoughts, she tuned back into what Lucas was saying. "I got in trouble for playing around more than a few times," Lucas said, fiddling with the GPS. "My family used to live near Seattle General. You know, where you were staying that time. There's a park nearby. When I was in elementary school, I was there every day. I used to dominate all the other kids, no matter what game we were playing." He conveniently left out the part where he had to bribe other kids during hide-and-seek, but when it came to games like Street Fighter, no one in the neighborhood could beat him. Lily froze. The one with the long bridge. Her memory of the park was fuzzy, but that long, crooked bridge had left a deep impression. "You know it. You've been there?" Lucas asked, surprised. "When I was little," she said, not elaborating. She didn't want to revisit the memory of losing her father, nor the memory of a lonely little girl squatting in a corner of that same park. Her way of moving on wasn't to process the past, but to hide it away and never think about it again. Lucas nodded, then said with a playful boast, "Well, if you saw a super handsome little kid there back then, that was definitely me." Hearing this, Lily stared at Lucas's profile in silence for a long, long time. Finally, with a hint of disappointment, she slowly lowered her head and laughed at herself. The memory was too distant. There was no way to know for sure. Besides, what were the chances of a coincidence like that? But that's how girls are. She couldn't completely let go of the fantasy. Fate had already dealt her such a cruel hand. Why couldn't it turn this one fantasy into reality? If that little boy really had been Lucas, she felt like she would have given him her life. Within a few minutes, she pushed the unrealistic fantasy aside and went along with Lucas as he chatted about other things. It never mattered what they talked about. Just talking with him made her happy. The car moved through the night, the sound of wind and passing cars filling the air outside. Inside, it was quiet and peaceful. Lucas had intentionally turned off the stereo, leaving only the soft murmur of their conversation. To him, Lily's gentle, slightly timid voice was better than any song. After a moment, Lily pursed her lips and asked tentatively, "Are your parents pressuring you to find a girlfriend yet?" Lucas was completely baffled. What kind of question is that? Of course not. The only one pressuring him was Emma, and she was relentless. Lily felt a wave of relief. The tight grip she had on the hem of her shirt finally loosened. "That's good," she muttered under her breath. "What did you say?" "Nothing. I didn't say anything," Lily said, waving her hands frantically. Just as Lucas was trying to figure out what new weirdness this dork was up to, she asked another question. "So, when do you think your parents will start pressuring you to get married?" Lucas was speechless. He kept his left hand on the wheel and used his right to poke her in her not-so-bright forehead. "I'm only 21. I'm not even legal to rent a car in some states. It's way too early for that." He then smiled. "But hey, when they finally do start getting on my case, I'll just bring you home." "Huh?" Lily blinked, not understanding. "What, huh? If you don't want it, that's fine. But if you won't help me, I guess I'll have to let them set me up on blind dates." That sent the girl into a panic. Her voice was much louder than usual. "I can help you." Then, guiltily, she added, "I mean, we're good friends. You help me so much all the time." Her voice trailed off, becoming almost inaudible. She lowered her head in shame, feeling like she had betrayed him. In her mind, she was the only one who had broken their promise of being just friends. She didn't just want to be his friend anymore. She wanted to be with Lucas forever. The car was quiet for a moment. "It's date night. Let's go see a late movie," Lucas said suddenly, pulling the self-condemning dork out of her thoughts. "It's too late," Lily mumbled. Although she had always wanted to see a movie with Lucas, it was already almost 10 o'clock. Her mom would worry if she got back too late. "Your mom already said it was fine. What are you worried about?" Lucas said dismissively. The girl froze, her mouth slightly agape as she blinked at him with a look that was both adorable and completely clueless. "When did my mom say it was fine? How did I know about this?" Lucas grinned triumphantly, pulling out his phone and showing Lily the chat history. "Right after we left my house. She gave the green light." Lily leaned over to see the timestamp. He had arranged everything while she was still tutoring Emma. She'd been completely outmaneuvered by Lucas and sold out by her own mother. So he asked her back then, but is only telling me now, just so he could wait for me to say, it's too late. He planned for that, too. Once she processed it all, she meant to give Lucas a fierce glare, but the moment she met his eyes, her tough facade crumbled. She was back to being a timid little rabbit, only daring to look at his collar. Well, if this devious boy has gone to all this trouble, what choice do I have? I guess I have to go with him. It's not like I knew anything about it, after all. Lily thought this to herself, but seeing Lucas's smug expression, she felt a little unnerved. It's date night, she said nervously. People will get the wrong idea. It's fine. We're just good platonic friends. Let them think what they want, Lucas said, completely unconcerned. As long as our own consciences are clear, that's all that matters. Lily didn't say anything. She was starting to fall in love with the word platonic because right now, her conscience was anything but clear. Then you have to promise me one thing, she said after a moment of thought. What's that? Lucas was intrigued. The dork was making demands now. He was very curious to hear what she had to say. The girl hung her head, wringing her hands together as if afraid he'd refuse. Will you let me buy you a shirt? You promised you would when you bought me that dress. All the dramatic scenarios Lucas had imagined vanished. He never would have guessed that her one condition would still be for his benefit. Sure, I promised, so I'll stick to it, Lucas said casually. It was better not to be a jerk about these things, otherwise it would be harder to trick this dork next time. This required a sustainable approach. Just as Lily was celebrating her small victory, Lucas handed her his phone. See if there's anything you want to watch, he said, his eyes on the road. He had no idea the girl's attention was entirely on his face, not the phone screen. Lily shook her head. I'll watch anything, as long as I'm with you. Lucas didn't press her, casually placing the phone on the console between them. Since he had already secured the golden ticket from Lily's mother, he had naturally already researched the showtimes and film listings for every theater nearby. Are we going back to the same mall as last time? Lily asked, a thrill of excitement in her heart. More than this being her first time seeing a movie, she cared that it was her first time with Lucas. We're going to your place first, Lucas said, his expression neutral. To my place? Why? Lily felt like she'd been led around by the nose all day, her brain completely unable to keep up. But one thing was certain. She had once again stepped right into a trap Lucas had dug for her. And to think she once believed he was a genuinely nice guy. Well, he was nice, but he was also devious as hell. To say hi to your mom, of course, Lucas answered with a straight face. And while we're there, you can change your clothes. Put on that dress. I bought it for you so long ago, and I've never even seen you wear it. The girl pouted. Which one of those is the while we're there part? Lucas froze for a second, then cleared his throat forcefully. Changing your clothes, obviously. What's wrong with you? He continued his tirade. Lily Thompson, your mother treats me like her own son. Everyone can see that. How come my visiting her be an afterthought? Are you suggesting I'm only going over there to see you in a dress? He clutched his chest dramatically. Crude. Depraved. That is a gross accusation. If word of this got out, what would happen to my reputation as an upstanding gentleman? Lily didn't notice his sudden verbosity. She was so taken aback by his scolding that she could only offer a meek apology. I'm sorry. No big deal, Lucas said, waving a magnanimous hand. I forgive you. At the mall, Lily, wearing the belted, long dress Lucas had bought her, walked shyly beside him. Because it was date night, the mall was filled with couples, arms linked. They were naturally assumed to be part of the crowd, and Lucas became the target of countless jealous and resentful stares. When Lucas felt the eyes on him, he proudly lifted his chin. This dork might not be flashy on a normal day, but in a dress that showed off her figure, her slender body, and impossibly delicate waist, she was almost unfairly stunning. And that was with her bangs still covering her forehead. If she ever got rid of them, Lucas figured he'd probably get jumped. Lily wasn't thinking about any of that. She just stuck close to Lucas, timidly trying to remember the style of shirt she had planned to buy for him. Their arms would brush against each other from time to time, but neither of them mentioned it, nor did they pull away. They didn't notice that the distance between them as they walked was much smaller than the last time they were here. There seemed to be far fewer men's clothing stores than women's, and they quickly found something. How about this one? Lily held a black t-shirt against Lucas's chest to size it up. The graphic was simple, which she thought suited his style. It gave off a friendly, big brother vibe that looked especially gentle. Let's have the gentleman try it on, the professional sales associate said, seeing the clear desire to buy in Lily's eyes. Lucas walked languidly over to Lily. Are we about done? For some reason, Picking out clothes for Lily had been a fun dress-up game he could play all day, but after only a short while of shopping for himself, he felt like he was ready to die. The girl nodded enthusiastically, then suddenly took a few steps back. "What are you doing?" Lucas tilted his head, curious. He watched as she took out her phone and snapped a picture of him. Lily looked at the photo of the casually handsome Lucas, a smile spreading across her face. "This is the one." Lucas breathed a sigh of relief. No more trying on clothes. He was finally free. That was the strange thing about this dork. She'd agonize over spending $10 on herself, but when it came to buying things for her mom or for him, she wouldn't even blink. Lucas carried the shopping bag as he and Lily searched for the movie theater. He snuck a peek at the price tag. $1.28. For a men's t-shirt, that was pretty expensive. At least, Lucas would never consider it if he were buying it for himself. It was the kind of thing Emily or Emma would buy for him. And now Lily. "Isn't this a little much?" Lucas said, his heart aching. He knew how hard she worked at her part-time jobs. Lily was still basking in the joy of having bought Lucas a shirt. "The dress you bought me was more expensive. Is this what it feels like to be a sugar baby? It's awesome." "I'm not a sugar mama," Lily retorted in a tiny voice, thinking, if I were, I probably would have been your sugar mama a long time ago. I wouldn't still be trying to work up the courage to confess. Lucas smiled and tapped her on the forehead. "You will be someday," he said meaningfully. "Come on, let's go see the movie." "Okay," the girl replied softly, continuing to follow obediently by his side. Spotting a bubble tea shop nearby, Lucas pulled her over. Even if this dork still thought they were just platonic friends, a little date night ritual was essential. Lucas looked up and saw a sign advertising a special offer for couples. Buy 2 drinks and get a free matching keychain set. It was a pair of cute Stitch figures, one blue and one pink. Lucas had loved that cartoon as a kid. "Is this a new promotion?" he asked the employee. "Yes, it's just for today and tomorrow, for couples buying bubble tea," the employee replied politely. Lily turned her head to Lucas. Do you want some?" Lucas thought this dork was getting sillier by the minute. He met her gaze with a look that was half amused, half exasperated. "Why else would I bring you here?" "Oh," the girl said, her voice barely a whisper. "Then, 2, please." She was happy, both at the prospect of pretending to be a couple to buy tea and at getting something for free. She never knew such a perfect win-win situation could exist in the world. Perhaps sensing Lily's flustered expression, the employee asked chattily, "Are you 2 a couple?" Just as Lily was anxiously trying to figure out how to answer, a warm hand suddenly clasped her slender wrist. The touch sent a jolt like an electric current through her entire body, straight to her heart, which began to pound furiously. Even with the noise of them all around them, she could hear her own heartbeat loud and clear. For a moment, she completely forgot how to react. "Of course we are," Lucas said with a light laugh. "Don't we look like it?" Lily ducked her head, staring at Lucas's shirt. "You do," the young employee smiled. "You're a perfect match, a real power couple. I don't think I've ever seen a couple this good-looking before." Lucas offered a polite nod and didn't say anything more. His own acting skills were reaching their limit. Even though he was only holding her wrist, the feeling was indescribable. He could feel the softness of her skin, and when he gave a small, involuntary squeeze, she simply complied, sweet and trusting. He wished he never had to let go. Seeing the employee turn to make their drinks, he finally had a chance to glance at Lily. The girl was looking down at something, her cheeks the color of cherry tomatoes. She took a few deep breaths and asked, her voice trembling, "Are you done yet?" "Almost. Just hold on a little longer." Lily's heart finally began to settle. She peeked at their joined hands, a strange feeling blooming inside her. "Just for a little while, it's okay, right? Just for a little while." She didn't know which god she was praying to, but after a few seconds, she made up her mind. Mustering all her courage, she timidly squeezed his hand back. The triumphant smirk on Lucas's face instantly vanished, replaced by a look of stunned silence. Now Lily was in a full-blown panic. Like a child caught doing something wrong, she quickly looked away, pretending nothing had happened. She felt like she was learning all of Lucas's bad habits, turning into a bad kid herself. Just as she breathed a sigh of relief, Lucas, as if in retaliation, squeezed her hand firmly. Lily knew she had started it, so she couldn't say anything. She just had to let him have his revenge. Thankfully, the employee quickly returned with their bubble tea, and Lily saw a glimmer of hope. She had to admit, she cherished the feeling of Lucas holding her hand, but it was just too intense. Her heart couldn't take it, especially when she noticed people looking their way. She wanted to find a hole to crawl into, burying her head like an ostrich. "If I can't see you, you can't see me." But Lucas didn't let go. Instead, acting perfectly normal, He used his free hand to unlock his phone and prepare to pay. "I can get it," Lily blurted out, not realizing she had also reached for her phone with only one hand. Her left one at that. The employee pointed to a photo wall behind her. "Would you two like to take a picture together? It's free if you do." Lily's head was spinning. What kind of bubble tea shop is this? First a BOGO for couples, now a free drink for a photo? The employee seemed to notice her confusion and explained in a low voice, "Our boss loves running these kinds of promotions. Besides, you two are so photogenic, it'd be a waste not to." Lucas nodded. "The free drinks aren't important. The important thing is, can I get a copy of the photo?" "Of course. Deal." Lily stared blankly at Lucas, blinking, still not fully grasping the situation. The next thing she knew, she was being pulled into a photo with him. Lucas looked at the Polaroid picture the employee handed him, a grin stretching from ear to ear. He noticed that in 8 out of 10 pictures, this dork was probably looking away from the camera, just like she was now. It only added to her shy, adorable charm, making him like it even more. He hooked the bubble tea carrier with his pinky finger, clamping his phone and the photo between his other fingers, managing all 3 items with one hand. He was stubbornly forgetting he had a second hand. "You know, Polaroids have their own advantages over high-end cameras," Lucas said, holding the photo out for Lily to see. The girl saw the picture of the two of them holding hands and blushed furiously. My hangy," she urged in a small voice. Holding hands this long was far beyond the limits of selfishness she allowed herself. Lucas leaned in close to her ear and whispered, "Shh, let's wait until we're out of sight. We don't want her to find out we were faking it and make us pay." "Okay." Lily believed him. She was only believing everything Lucas said, not because she wanted to hold his hand a little longer. Definitely not. Watching Lucas and Lily's retreating figures, the bubble tea shop employee wore a knowing, motherly smile. Just then, another employee rushed over, patting her on the shoulder breathlessly. "Sorry I'm late, Lucy. I had a family thing. Just dock my pay, whatever." The employee from before waved her hand dismissively. "No worries. As the owner, it's actually kind of fun to play cashier once in a while. And you'll never guess what happened. I just saw the most handsome guy, and the girl with him was super, super cute. I'm shipping them so hard," she exclaimed, taping the photo they'd just taken onto the wall. At the very top of the photo wall, written in fluorescent marker, were the words, "Happily ever after starts here. Your shipping addiction is going to be the death of you," the real employee deadpanned. Meanwhile, it wasn't until Lucas was settled in his seat at the movie theater that he finally remembered he had a second hand. As they sat down, their clasped hands parted in a silent, mutual agreement. The moment Lucas turned his head, Lily quickly rubbed her burning cheeks. "How could you squeeze his hand back? So embarrassing." "Well, so much for being platonic. Lucas is so good to you, how could you? How could you take advantage of him like that?" She scolded herself. After she calmed down, the feeling of Lucas's hand holding hers still lingered, making her instinctively clench her fist in the air. As nerve-wracking as that moment had been, she had loved it so much. Now that he had let go, a sense of emptiness washed over her, as if a part of her was missing. Looking back on this one day, she thought she would probably smile in her sleep. In fact, right now felt more like a dream than any she'd ever had. Steeling her nerves, she snuck a glance at Lucas, only to find him watching her with a gentle, faint smile. Like a startled deer, Lily immediately looked down. But soon, the novelty of being in a movie theater for the first time overcame her shyness. She looked around like a curious child, taking everything in. Lucas just watched her with a quiet smile, finding her more adorable by the second. The theater was dark, but she could tell it was a full house. They were surrounded by people, almost all of them couples, their playful chatter filling the air. Lily had no idea how Lucas had managed to get seats right in the middle. He couldn't have bought them days in advance, could he? As she wondered, she made a startling discovery. Everywhere she looked, it was a boy and a girl sitting next to each other, without exception. And this dorky Lily had a feeling they weren't really here for the movie, because no one was actually looking at the giant screen. Suddenly, she saw a couple already making out and, startled, quickly snapped her eyes forward, sitting bolt upright. Her observational tour was officially over. That was probably rude, she whispered, her face flushing as she fidgeted with her hands. She felt like she had no manners. Lucas rolled his eyes at her. "Who cares? These couples don't even mind the security cameras. You think they're worried about you seeing them kiss?" The girl didn't quite understand. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. I don't know anything," Lucas said, clearing his throat. "Just sit tight. It should be starting soon." "Okay." Lily nodded obediently. "Such a good girl. You get a piece of popcorn as a reward." Lucas held a piece of popcorn to her lips. Whether she had finally gotten used to it and given up resisting, or it was just because the theater was dark, she obediently opened her mouth and ate it. A satisfied smirk played on Lucas's lips. His efforts were paying off. He normally never bought popcorn at the movies. He only did it today because he was with Lily. What was watching a movie compared to the fun of feeding this dork? Not even half as good. He smugly picked up a piece of popcorn for himself, but just as he brought it to his lips, Lily grabbed his wrist. "What's wrong?" Lucas asked, confused. "There. Might be spit on it," the girl said, her eyes fixed somewhere to the side, not daring to look at him. It was too dark before. She was pretty sure her lips had brushed against his fingers. "But I don't know which finger I used to feed you," Lucas said coolly. He'd never thought so fast in his life. The girl blinked. "Weren't it these two?" "You sure?" Lucas pressed. His question made her lose all confidence. Her posture even softened a bit. "Not sure." Lucas spread his hands. "Then how am I supposed to eat? It's awkward using my left hand, and the movie's about to start. I can't exactly run out to wash my hands, can I?" With that, he took a sip of his drink, using the moment to think of his next move. "Oh well, forget it. I just won't eat any. It's not like I'll be crying in my sleep tonight because I was craving popcorn." The girl bit her lip, thought for a long moment, then leaned close to Lucas's ear and whispered, I'll feed you." Her voice was so small, as if terrified someone else might hear. The soft, delicate sound sent a shiver down Lucas's spine. A siren's call couldn't have been more enchanting. "Okay," he agreed instantly. Lily picked out a plump-looking piece of popcorn and carefully brought it to his lips, her heart pounding. "We're just good friends. We're platonic," she chanted silently in her head. Unfortunately, she only got through it twice before giving up. This is not platonic at all. Lucas, on the other hand, accepted it without hesitation, looking like he was enjoying himself immensely. When Lily realized the popcorn was gone from her fingers, she froze for a second, then felt a strange sense of joy. She picked out another piece and held it out for him. Feeding Lucas was somehow much more fun than eating it herself. 2 minutes later. Okay, let me take a break," Lucas said with a burp. "If I eat this fast, I'm actually going to explode." He really couldn't eat anymore. The stuff was so cloying, it was making him not even want his drink. This was why he usually only bought an ice-cold Coke. "Oh, okay," Lily said, a little disappointed. Just then, the movie began. The girl sat up straight, her eyes fixed on the screen. The sound was really loud. At that moment, a slightly heavy-set guy using his phone's flashlight shuffled down the aisle, hunched over, and sat down next to Lucas. "Dude, you're brave," Lucas couldn't help but remark. "Coming to the movies alone on a night like this." The guy looked at him, surprised, thinking he'd found a kindred spirit. "You too, bro." Lucas shook his head, popping a piece of popcorn Lily had just handed him into his mouth. "Nope," he mumbled. "Jerk." The guy was so annoyed he moved to the only other empty seat far away, shooting Lucas a middle finger over his shoulder. "What did he say to you?" Lily whispered, leaning closer to Lucas, intensely curious. "He said he's really jealous I have such a beautiful, cute, and sweet friend like you." "You're just making that up to trick me," Lily said, pouting. Lucas was exasperated. "For once, I'm actually not lying. Only by half a word. Take out friend in the future and it'll be perfect." The movie they were watching was a silent voice. It had just reached the part where the main character, after transferring to a new class, is relentlessly bullied, and her notebook is thrown into a pond. Lily watched intently, her eyes turning red. Because of her family situation and her personality, she had been ostracized and bullied by the mean kids in her class in the exact same way. It was worse in middle school, when Sophia, desperate for her to get an education, had moved them to a rundown rental in a small town. The boys there had written on the blackboard, too. Knowing she didn't have a father, they wrote, starring in Where's Your Daddy? Lily Thompson. Because Sophia had attended a parent-teacher conference in her wheelchair, they drew a picture of her mother in a wheelchair on the blackboard, complete with racing stripes. When she was on cleaning duty, they would toss her backpack over her head, laughing at her panicked, desperate attempts to grab it. She often cried alone outside, waiting until her eyes were no longer swollen before she dared to go home. Otherwise, Sophia would see her and start crying too. Watching the movie, her heart ached for the main character. Malice is like a murky, bloody liquid. It flows toward whoever is most vulnerable. And Lily, with her timid nature and quiet demeanor, had naturally become a vessel for the cruelty of her rebellious peers. She never had many friends, and the few who were outspoken enough to defend her were eventually labeled not part of the group and became bystanders. Her experiences in middle school stole her words and her smiles. Her experiences growing up made her bangs grow longer. All that suffering had created the person she was now. As for Lucas, he had only one review for the first half of the movie. I really want to punch these kids. He was that kind of person. Otherwise, he never would have stepped in to help Lily back when they were complete strangers. He shifted in his seat and grumbled. Next time, how about we try the love seats? These chairs are really uncomfortable after a while. He added, don't worry, we can keep a respectable distance. Still perfectly platonic. His mind had hardly been on the movie at all. He'd been watching the girl's profile the entire time. Though the theater was dark, to Lucas, her eyes, as clear as jewels, seemed to glow. No, the girl shook her head. She had a feeling those tickets were expensive, and who knew what kind of new ways Lucas would find to tease her. Most importantly, if they got any closer, how could she possibly keep her feelings hidden? Why not? Do you dislike me that much? I don't dislike you. Lily had been burned enough times to develop a sensitivity to Lucas's traps, and this time, she caught on quickly. But she couldn't bring herself to be truly mad at him, so she just shot the boundary pusher a fierce glare. You're the worst. She knew his teasing was different from anyone else's. His main motivation was always to see her happy. At that thought, she gave a soft harumph, a small protest against him taking advantage of her earlier. But that was all. She could never bear to be truly angry with him. To Lucas, her attempt at being fierce was just adorable. He laughed awkwardly and decided to quit while he was ahead. He'd added enough wood to the fire. Now he just had to wait for the water to heat up. With nothing else to do, he went back to watching the movie and feeding the girl popcorn. From time to time, Lily would stubbornly feed him a piece back. After a little while, the girl scooted a bit closer to Lucas, her eyes fixed on his. Thank you, she said suddenly in a small voice. Lucas, who hadn't even swallowed his popcorn yet, looked at her, completely confused. For what? Thank you for letting me meet you. There were tears in her eyes, but she was smiling, her voice trembling. That snapped Lucas to full alert. Every time she got like this, it twisted his heart. The water isn't even that hot yet, he thought, quickly wiping her cheek to make sure the teardrops hadn't formed a stream. Why are you crying? He asked anxiously. Lily sniffled. You promised you'd let me cry whenever I wanted to. Okay, Lucas said, his voice full of affection as he smiled at the little crybaby before him. Then can you tell me why you're crying? What's wrong? He found it strange. If you really want to thank me, you should smile instead, he coaxed gently, wiping her tears. Obediently, Lily forced a smile that was a little awkward. Lucas reached out and gently ruffled her hair. That's more like it. Lily wiped her remaining tears with the back of her hand, her smile finally looking a little more natural. It feels like I only ever cry in front of you, she said, a little embarrassed. It felt like all the strength she had painstakingly built up over the years had inexplicably melted away. Who cares? I told you, you can cry whenever you want in front of me, Lucas said unconcerned. His mind was filled with the image of that first night they met, of Lily hiding in a dark corner, secretly wiping her tears. Honestly, back then, he had felt pity, but not much else. Now, thinking back on it, his heart ached as if it were being stabbed. I wish I had met you sooner, Lily said, her voice heavy, like a child who had just finished crying. She looked at his shoulder, wanting so badly to rest her forehead there, but in the end, she only dared to lean against the very edge of her seat. Her eyes were blurry with tears, her right hand clenched unconsciously. Fate loved to play jokes on her, forcing her to grow up in such pain, only to have her meet the person she would love most in her life when she felt the most useless. Just then, Lucas looked at her, a gentle smile on his face, his eyes serious. Our meeting was perfectly timed. I have to thank you, too. Thank you for walking into my life when I was at my lowest. The boy's soft, magnetic voice echoed in her heart, like a stone dropped into a calm lake, sending out ripples. The faint light from the screen reflected off his face, and Lily found herself lost in his gaze. Really? She asked timidly. When have I ever lied to you? Lucas said seriously. Then he quickly added, except for when I'm trying to tease you. The corners of her tear-filled eyes crinkled. That one smile was etched into Lucas's heart. At least you know it. You're the one who said you were willing to be tricked by me, Lucas said, gently pinching her cheek again. Perhaps because they were in a movie theater, their actions were a little more intimate than usual. I've always been willing, the long-haired girl in the pale green dress said with a dazzling smile in the dim light. Lucas's hand froze. He nodded, trying to maintain his composure. He had almost been taken out by a critical hit from this dork. After that, Lily watched the rest of the movie with rapt attention. Lucas, on the other hand, couldn't focus on a single frame. His heart rate refused to come down. It was over. The dumb frog had just committed murder. It was after 11 by the time they left the theater. They walked out side by side, and Lucas casually tossed the empty popcorn bucket into a trash can, vowing never to eat the stuff again. It was so cloying, especially with bubble tea. That movie was really good, Lily said, still savoring the ending. Her heart was simple. Seeing others find happiness made her happy, too. Yeah, the main character's behavior was a little whack at the beginning, but I really liked the story of them saving each other in the end, Lucas said. He hadn't been paying full attention, but he remembered the main plot points. No wonder everyone wants to fall in love, the girl said with a nod. Then her eyes fell. It's a shame not everyone is so lucky. That's why they say love is a necessity for humanity as a whole, but a luxury for the individual. You have such a profound way of summing things up, Lily said, looking at him with wide eyes. Lucas shrugged. I just made that up. As they stepped out of the air-conditioned mall, a wave of hot air hit them, thick with the sound of cars speeding down the street. It was like stepping from the North Pole into a tropical rainforest, stiflingly humid. Some nights were cool, others felt like a sauna. It all depended on Mother Nature's mood. Just as he was about to complain, Lily gently poked his arm. I need to use the restroom, she said, a little embarrassed. Lucas wasn't sure if she meant going back into the theater or finding a public one. Want me to walk you to the door? Lily quickly waved her hands. No, that's okay. All right, I'll wait right here then. You should probably walk around a bit so you don't get bitten by mosquitoes, the girl said, then hurried off, clearly focused on getting back as quickly as possible. Lucas stood under the bright white lights, soaking in the late-night atmosphere. It had been a long time since he'd been out this late. He watched her retreating figure with a smile, and it wasn't until she disappeared around a corner that he noticed a mosquito had landed on his arm. Smack! Seriously, why haven't these abominations gone extinct yet? Lucas thought with genuine malice. He couldn't fathom what contribution these disgusting creatures made to the ecosystem. Their only purpose in life seemed to be annoying people. He held his arm out under the light. Question: what does a guy do when he's bored out of his mind? Lucas's answer was to use himself as bait to fish for mosquitoes. A few moments later, he had swatted for more. 5 enemy aircraft shot down. I can apply to be a fighter ace now, he muttered to himself. Just then, a figure approached. Thinking it was the door coming back, he looked up, but his expression quickly soured. Well, hey there. What are you doing here? A guy with curly hair said, his tone dripping with disdain. Lucas ignored him, just jerking a thumb toward the theater's late-night exit behind him. The guy didn't seem to be finished. He took the hand of the girl next to him and sighed dramatically. Spending date night all alone at the movies? That's rough. Then he smirked. Why be such a simp, right? Lucas returned a less-than-friendly smile, thinking, as if you didn't try the same thing. You remember this guy? Since coming to UW, the dude had pursued exactly 2 girls, one who was into Lucas and Scarlett Montgomery. In the end, he struck out with both and got caught by his original girlfriend for cheating on her while chasing other girls, blaming his rival for his own failure. How original, how pathetic. Go back to Gotham. Batman said he won't hit you anymore, Lucas thought. He then asked casually, so how long have you two been together? Since the beginning of this semester. Almost half a year now. Man, I never thought I'd see the day. One of the top guys in the entire law school, out alone on date night. You must be one of those cool, aloof types. I get it. The guy gave him a thumbs up. Nah, not really. You were just smart to realize it was a lost cause early on, Lucas replied with a smile. I wish I'd been like you and just given up sooner. He hadn't planned on engaging, but when someone keeps poking the bear, you don't just take it. Giving a little ground was his limit. A second offense meant you were asking for trouble. The guy froze, glancing nervously at his girlfriend, who was now looking annoyed. He quickly started to head into the theater, but just as he reached the door, Lucas grabbed his arm. Wait, you didn't just jump from one relationship to the next, did you? Lucas asked, his face a mask of serious concern and surprise. Because I could have sworn you were still chasing Scarlett at the end of last semester. I heard you even stayed in Seattle for a summer job, just for her. As soon as the words left his mouth, the guy's girlfriend yanked her hand away. You're mistaken, the guy said, shaking Lucas's arm off. You know, I might be, Lucas said, frowning thoughtfully. He then looked at the girl. Miss, don't be mad. I have a terrible memory. Let me just text a friend we both know to confirm. He spoke with righteous indignation. I can't let you two have a fight because of my bad memory. As soon as the guy had stepped into his trap, Lucas had no intention of letting it end quickly. He never started trouble, but anyone who came after him repeatedly usually ended up regretting it. Unseen by the group, a girl in a long dress was watching the scene unfold. Lily took several deep breaths, and with a surge of courage, she pushed her long bangs to the side and jogged toward Lucas. Her dark hair and the hem of her dress fluttered in the night breeze as she moved. She reached his side, held out her right hand, and decisively laced her fingers with his. "Let's go," she said, tucking her arm into his, her voice soft. Lucas, who had been in the middle of his performance, suddenly froze. Actually, all 4 people present froze, including Lily herself. By the time the dork realized what she had done, her hand was already holding his. The other guy's eyes had locked onto Lily the moment he saw her and hadn't moved since. Lucas recovered first and smiled at her. Okay. At this point, he didn't need to say anything else. He obediently turned and let Lily lead him away. The curly-haired guy stared after their closely knit figures, speechless for a long time. "Are you still looking?" his now ex-girlfriend snapped before storming off. "Wait, don't go. Let me explain. I'm sorry." The second they were around the corner, Lily let go of his hand and apologized frantically. Lucas found it amusing. "What are you sorry for?" He had been about to deliver the final blow, but the girl's actions had still made his heart ache. "I should be thanking you," he said playfully. Lily stared at him, bewildered. "I just took advantage of you. And I'm not even that pretty, and I just went over and pretended to be your girlfriend." As she spoke, her head drooped, and she fidgeted with her hands like a guilty child. "But he was mocking you, and I just couldn't stand it." She actually thinks holding my hand was her taking advantage of me. For a moment, Lucas didn't know what to say. He felt like he was the one who had hit the jackpot. "Don't be ridiculous," Lucas said softly. "You're the most beautiful girl in the world." He gently smoothed her bangs, unable to imagine the courage it must have taken for this dork, who used her hair as a shield, to do what she just did. To have gone through that internal struggle. He never would have believed Lily was capable of something like that. And she did it for him. Lucas felt a little dazed, his gaze fixed on her face. Her eyes were like shimmering pools of water, gentle and captivating. The evening breeze lifted strands of her hair, which danced with the hem of her dress. The girl seemed to be bathed in the soft glow of the night, giving this summer a special meaning. Suddenly, Lucas noticed that the cicadas, whose buzzing had been so irritating just moments before, now sounded cheerful and melodic. "Really?" Lily stopped fidgeting and stared at Lucas. A barely perceptible smile touched Lucas's lips. "Expert certified," he replied with utmost seriousness. The joy that bloomed in Lily's heart instantly washed away her anxiety and insecurity. Being called beautiful by Lucas, feeling like she had actually helped him, it all made her want to go home and roll around on her bed with glee. A woman dresses for the one who admires her, and only when Lucas called her beautiful did she feel truly happy. Lucas didn't know what it was like for other guys, what moment made them decide they wanted to protect a girl for the rest of their lives. But for him, it was now. Thinking about it, this dork had already unknowingly taken up a huge part of his future plans. She was practically inseparable from them. So who's the frog in the pot, really? Lucas mused to himself. He glanced at the time and gave her a soft smile. "Come on, I'll take you home." He wanted to take another walk with her, but he knew her mom might worry, so he decided to take her straight home. They weren't officially a couple yet, after all. But that wouldn't be for long. Lucas made a decision. He was going to spend the rest of his life with this impossibly cute dork. He was going to make sure this girl, who had given him all her gentleness even while she was sinking in her own quicksand of suffering, would never have to endure hardship again. With a smile, Lucas slowly extended his hand toward her. "Want to take advantage of me again?" he teased. "If you didn't get enough, you can have another go. I'm a real pushover." Lily just huffed and turned away. "No. What is wrong with you? How can someone get addicted to being taken advantage of?" she thought, completely baffled. "All right, then let's switch. If you won't take advantage of me, then I'll take advantage of you," Lucas said, arguing with mock seriousness. "I've thought about it. Even though you were trying to help me, you can't just get a free ride. You have to take responsibility. Pay up," Lucas said, pretending to grab her hand. As expected, just before he could, the girl darted away. "I won't take responsibility." "You freeloader," he yelled, deliberately running a little slower than her. "I am a freeloader," she giggled, a rare, genuine sound. She couldn't even remember the last time she had laughed like that. Around Lucas, her logic was always being overwhelmed by her feelings. It was impossible to control because she liked him just that much. Staying rational around the person you liked was an excruciatingly difficult thing to do. After a few moments of playful chasing, they stood by the car, panting lightly. A faint blush colored Lily's cheeks as she leaned against the car, watching the boy walk toward her. "You're fast, like a little rabbit," Lucas commented, opening the car door for her. A small smile played on Lily's lips as she slid into the seat. Lucas was overjoyed to see her becoming so much more cheerful. After starting the car, he glanced at Lily, who had once again retreated into her quiet, sensible mode, and gave a wry smile. This dork always seemed to follow a burst of laughter with a retreat into her sad memories, reminded of the immense pressure on her shoulders. No one would choose not to smile unless they were forced by that pressure. Life begins with a cry, but laughter is a birthright. I suggest you smile right now, or you're not going home tonight. Huh. Late that night, Lily sat down at her desk in the dark after towel drying her hair. She was wearing comfortable summer shorts, revealing her smooth, white legs. She didn't know if it was genetics, but Lily's figure was effortlessly perfect, her legs and waist slender in all the right places. The girl stared at the bill for her mother's follow-up treatments, the astronomical number for her, and slumped onto the desk, silently calculating her finances. It was moments like these that always made her feel a little down. Then she remembered what Lucas had told her. Learning and trying new things is never a loss. His influence on her had been subtle but profound. If she hadn't met him, she'd probably still be stuck doing exhausting, low-paying jobs, never even considering something like tutoring. The faint glow of her phone screen was stark in the pitch-black room. She looked at herself in selfie mode and began practicing her self-introduction over and over again. It's just nerves. I can overcome it, slowly. Lily thought about all this and whispered to herself, I have to work hard enough to stand by your side. In the men's dorm, Jason was lazily chatting with Vanessa. Ryan was miserably waiting for a text from Bianca, unable to focus on anything. He'd watched 2 minutes of an anime, then flipped through a few pages of a novel, retaining nothing. Lucas was lying in bed, plotting how to trick the dork Lily into being his girlfriend. After a while, he said suddenly, Dude, let's get the team finalized as soon as possible. I'm going to make this thing work. Lucas wasn't sure if he was saying it for Jason or for himself. Of course, Jason said lazily. But what's with the sudden urgency? I want the person I like to be happy, obviously, Lucas said, his tone serious. Jason paused. You being this direct is making your dad here very uncomfortable. What? You don't want Vanessa to have a good life. You cheating bastard. Jason scoffed. Duh, of course I do. There you go, then. A corner of Lucas's mouth lifted. He sat up and went back to his market research. To outsiders, it might have seemed like a whim, but he had been preparing for this for a long time. That girl has a really good heart. I can tell, Jason said seriously. Lucas nodded slightly. Of course she does. She just doesn't have much faith in herself. Jason turned to look at Lucas, who was now intently focused on his computer screen, and thought to himself, but have you noticed how much that girl likes you? Lucas, it's not just her who doesn't have faith in herself. After a long silence, Jason spoke again. What Scarlett owes you isn't just your time. It's your confidence. Is that really a thing? Lucas said as if joking. Of course, Jason nodded. He walked over to the balcony, slid open the door, and lit a cigarette. After a long drag, all he said was, I think you and Lily are great together. Go for it. You're not Ryan. You should know what you're doing. Ryan overheard and grumbled, Hey, why are you dragging me into this? In his heart, he could see the difference. Both Vanessa with Jason and Lily with Lucas were far more proactive than Bianca was with him. But he couldn't control his feelings. It was like being sober and full of regret. But the moment Bianca showed him the slightest bit of attention, he'd fall right back in. Lucas glanced at him and said with a sigh, We were all young once. Jason thought back on his own past and blew out a smoke ring. Yeah, as long as you end up with the right person, the journey doesn't matter. In the past, he had been proud of his history as a master player. Now he just felt like he had wasted his life. Many people only learn what love is, or how to love, after they've fallen flat on their face. Only then do they realize that before you can love someone else, you have to learn to love yourself. Lucas climbed down from his bunk and clapped the anxious Ryan on the shoulder. Think about it, man. You're the apple of your parents' eye. Your mom would cry if she saw you groveling for a girl. Get off, get off, Ryan said, playfully shoving him. Why didn't you think like that back in the day? Our situations are different. If I'm not good to her, my mom might actually beat me. Lucas didn't say any more, just grabbed his laptop and went to strategize with Jason. Time flew by, and soon it was June. Seattle was heating up like a furnace, and all the juniors were entering their most anxious period. For them, college life was truly coming to an end. Even more depressing was the prospect of getting a job. Lucas and Jason, however, had no time for sentimentality. They had been busy for days, coaxing, recruiting employees. Lucas borrowed a large sun umbrella from Aaron, set it up on the quad, and that became their studio's first interview site. It was a bit pathetic now, but Lucas believed it was the start of something big. Just as he had predicted, the promise of making games and getting paid for it drew a huge crowd of applicants. He finally understood why so many directors hired college students as extras these days. Some of them were even willing to pay for the experience. It was wild. During their lunch break, Jason sat down next to Lucas. Quick update for you. A friend of mine got a few people together to start a studio a while back, but they have no money and no ideas. They're thinking of coming to work for us. What do you think? I think it's a good idea. We'd have a full team right off the bat, and it'd be good for long-term growth. He laid it all out seriously. When he said he'd let Lucas make the final call, he meant it, without any hesitation. That was one of the reasons Lucas was willing to go into this with him. Lucas stroked his chin, thinking for a moment. Let's pass, he said gravely. What? Jason was curious. Too hard to manage. The people we hire here, we can fire whenever we want. If your friend brings a whole crew over, it'll be a nightmare later on. He paused, as if weighing whether to say the rest. Let's assume everything goes smoothly. How can you guarantee they won't form a clique? On the surface, he's bringing us people. But let's say, and this is just a hypothetical, we actually start to succeed. They learn everything they need to know, they get familiar with our process, and he has their loyalty. What's to stop them from walking out and starting their own thing? What do you do then? Lucas looked at Jason, his expression unreadable. You have to remember, we can both be replaced. If he's just using you as a stepping stone, there's nothing you can do. Jason was stunned. That would be so unethical. We're here to make money. You're talking to me about ethics. Lucas had a laugh. If that happens and you can't pull together a new team to take over, the project stalls and we all starve. Damn, you're on another level, was all Jason could say after a long silence, giving him a thumbs up. He hadn't thought that far ahead at all. Hearing Lucas lay it out actually scared him a little. Honestly, he never would have expected Lucas to be so calculating. Let's just keep recruiting this afternoon. What's for lunch? Jason asked, resting a hand on Lucas's shoulder. Lily's bringing me something in a bit. Lucas replied nonchalantly. Dude, you bastard. You dare curse out your own dad. Lucas slapped the list of names on the table. I asked her to bring me some food. I need to go over these. It's just hiring a few people. It shouldn't even take a full day. You're really taking this seriously, huh? All right, fine. Jason shrugged. He had nothing to say. He had to admit, seeing so many people show up for interviews had made him a little cocky. Lucas was definitely the one with the better ideas. When he had been thinking of doing this on his own, none of this had even occurred to him. They didn't need highly skilled professionals at the start. Any talented college student could handle the work. I'll eat here with you, he said, squinting at the blazing sun overhead. He couldn't bring himself to go eat while Lucas was still working. Suit yourself, Lucas said, then spotted a figure in the distance. Looks like you won't have to. What do you mean? Jason asked. Your girlfriend's here. Vanessa walked up, gave them a casual greeting, and pulled up a plastic chair. Just came to see how your little venture is going. Get a look at the business world, she said with a light laugh. First time I've known anyone to start a company. Lucas didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Like I said, all these people fighting over a job that pays $600 a month. It's a whole new world. Vanessa glanced at the long list in Lucas's hand. It's a part-time gig for them, so $600 is actually really good. The campus mail center job is exhausting, and it only pays a little over $500 a month, right? It also shows there are still a lot of people with dreams out there, Jason countered. He wanted to believe that some of them were there to chase a dream. Maybe not 10 or 8, but 1 or 2 at least. As they were chatting, Lily arrived, jogging over with a bag in her hand. Lucas quickly took the food from her, sat her down in a chair, and grabbed the small electric fan he'd snatched from Aaron to cool her down. He was both worried and exasperated. You silly dork, why were you running in this heat? Aren't you hot? I was afraid you'd be hungry, Lily said, panting. A few strands of hair were stuck to her sweaty cheeks, but she hadn't bothered to fix them. It was obvious she had come straight here without a break. Lucas smiled and snatched the fan from Jason's hand as well, aiming both at her. I'm not hot. You should eat. Honest answer. Did you eat yet? No, Lily answered, looking down. She had run over to bring Lucas's food right after her class ended, without stopping to eat herself. Only then did she notice Vanessa sitting next to them. She jumped, startled, and found Vanessa's complicated expression a little strange. This is Vanessa, Jason's girlfriend, Lucas introduced. Lily offered a shy and nervous greeting. Hello. Hey, Vanessa replied with a smile. As Scarlett Montgomery's best friend, she felt a slight aversion to Lily, but she wasn't brainless. Business was business. Seeing the way Lucas and Lily looked at each other, she sighed a long, silent sigh. Scarlett, she thought, I think you've lost your chance.